A man with long blonde hair turns to a girl and says that he is tired and disappointed in her. The girl is crying while sitting on the floor, and the man claims that she is not his daughter and has never meant anything to him. However, the child claims that he is her father, and she explains that she was mistaken. And she claims that it's all her fault and begs him not to leave. The girl is very worried and cries, asks the man not to leave her and promises that she will be a good daughter. She again belittles her to forgive. But after a few minutes, she doesn't understand why she's asking for forgiveness. The girl looked at her hands and did not understand what this meant, since they were covered in red paint. The man reports that she begged for Ophelia to die in her place and asks her about it. He, screaming, orders her to answer the question since she begged him to do so. But the girl objects and says that she just wanted to become Ophelia. After all, she just wanted to become his real daughter. A man with long hair screams and says that she has crossed the line. Hearing this, the girl does not understand why she is saying this and why her body is moving on its own. The gentleman tells the girl to live as if she were dead, and otherwise he does not think that he can continue to tolerate her, and then leaves. The child looked at the room, and she didn't understand how she ended up here. And when she looked at her hands, she thought that this couldn't be, and it seemed to her that she was probably dead. The main character remembers that one day she was adopted by Pak Doya, and this was done by the owner of a conglomerate whose name everyone knows. Leaving the orphanage and getting into a luxurious foreign car, she could not help but tremble with joyful excitement. At this time, the girl hits the door with her fists and asks for help. She reports that she was wrong and made a mistake. The main character ended up locked up, and she spent 120 days in pitch darkness, not seeing anything around her. Suddenly, the door is opened by a woman wearing a strange hat. She turns to the girl and tells her not to make a sound, as she will have to take on the bad luck of the family's youngest daughter. Hearing this, the main character only then realized her fate, because she was unlucky to be born similar to the seriously ill daughter of Sulin Depot, who did not stay long, and therefore she was adopted to be used as a diversion for her illness. The lady remembers that she lived like this for 10 years, trapped in darkness, tasting despair. The only people the lady could talk to were the shamans and scientists who visited her from time to time. She managed to get out of this terrible house only when she became an adult. More precisely, she was thrown out of there because she ceased to be useful. Standing outside with a small travel bag, the main character thought that finally she could live like everyone else and be a person, not a tool. However, the girl understood everything when she had an accident, because it happened in a matter of seconds. In the last minutes of her life, the lady thought that the Park family had long ago decided to finish her off, and they planned to do this by staging a car accident. The main character understands that if she dies like this, she will not be able to go to the afterlife, because she will be filled with resentment and will forever wander through the heavens. The little girl remembers everything clearly until the moment she stopped breathing. However, she does not understand what is happening, because 5 minutes ago she was an adult, and now she is small. The main character realizes that memories have begun to penetrate her mind, and so she ended up in the body of Bunny, who was born in a slum called the Dump. You remember that she once attracted the attention of the Grand Duke Krendel, who was called a great hero here. It was about her appearance, which strongly reminded him of the appearance of Ophelia Credel, his youngest daughter, and so he decided to adopt her. The Grand Duke abandoned his real daughter and adopted a fake one to take on Ophelia's killing curse. There really is a curse in this world. They are cast by evil magicians using forbidden techniques. And when the girl looked at her hand, she saw the sign of the curse that Bunny received instead of Ophelia. And she thought that no one told her what it was. When the girl turns 18, the curse will work on that day. Everything will return to normal, and the real daughter will return to the family, and the fake one to the slums. At this time, the main character realized that she was in Bunny's body. And this is all because her life is so similar to hers. However, the girl does not understand what happened to the real Bunny until she fully knows exactly what situation she found herself in. The main character is confident that she knows what to do, and at this time, she thought that she did not want to be used and then thrown away, as was the case in a past life. She realizes that she needs to get out of here. The girl reflects on the fact that she must remove the curse before reaching adulthood, before it completely affects her body. And at that time, the girl thought that she could, because she had no other choice. Bunny realizes that the terrible Puck family taught her something after all, and this was a prediction of fate using physiognomy. That is, She knew how to determine temperament and character by a person's appearance and used her knowledge wisely. The main character was in the western tower of the castle of the Grand Duke Credel. And when she opened the window, she thought that she did not understand why she became obsessed in this particular era. The Western Tower is a place of imprisonment for guilty nobles. Only now it's closed, and the girl is all alone here. She looked down and thought that if she decided to jump, there wouldn't be a wet spot left of her. The main character understands that if she had gotten into Banna's body before she decided to perform a magical ritual, then everything would not have gone so far. Because of the curse, Grand Duke Credel had to say goodbye to his beloved daughter. And this man caught Banna trying to prepare a potion that would change fate. After all, the girl grew up in a dump, and she was ill-mannered and often stole, and therefore earned everyone's contempt. Having thought about all this, the main thing of burning reflects on the fact that she is in complete ass. The girl thought that she really had to be a loser, locked in a tower until she became an adult. The main character understands that Bunny is now 10, and therefore she will have to stick around for another 8 years. The girl understands that determination alone is not enough, and she would definitely do something if she could act and meet other people. And she understands that at this rate, it is better for her to immediately return to the landfill. Bunny reflects on the fact that lawlessness reigns in the slums. At least there is no one restricting her freedom, and she will demand that they get rid of her death seal and immediately get out of the castle. Suddenly, a man opens the door and, screaming, asks the girl if she stole, and then grabs her breast. The girl saw that he had a wide, shiny, and clean forehead, which meant that he was born into a rich family. The eyebrow was cut off as if scratched by the claws of a wild animal, and most likely in childhood he was separated from his brothers and sisters. The girl looked at the man and saw a clear jawline and precise facial features, and this meant that he was brave, but he was a limited thinker, and he lacked flexibility because he never deviated from his decisions. There is so much energy in his piercing gaze that it seems as if his eyes are glowing. The nose is high and round, the teeth are even, but the fangs are surprisingly sharp. The hair resembles a lion's mane. And, despite his young age, the guy has well-developed muscles, is hardy and strong. The lady understands that he is inclined to trust his instincts and immediately throw himself into battle, but she has well-developed intuition. Brutal habits can destroy him, but in general, the main character thought that if he becomes a military man, he will be able to rule the world, and she knows who this man is, and he is the second son of the Credel Silver family. Bunny looked at him and remembered how he behaved in the past, and how he threatened her. The girl looks at the guy in surprise and asks what she stole. Silver says that she suddenly learned to pretend to be the most innocent and asks her about it. The guy asks who, besides her, would dare to touch Ophelia's brooch. Heard this, the girl does not understand what he is talking about. The main character objects and says that she did not steal it, and at that time, she thought that if you believe Bunny's memories, then it is so. Silver angrily asks if she forgot how he promised to beat her to death. And at this time, the guy lets go of the girl, and she falls, and he talks about giving her exactly 1 day. And during this time, Bunny must return her in an amicable way before he puts a slave brand on her neck. Silver claims that doing this is a piece of cake for him, and he says that this was the last warning. The main character remembered that, and thought, even if it was not her memory, but the brooch that Silver always wears with you, she heard that Ophelia gave him this decoration before she left. At this time, the girl realized that she really deserved suspicion because Bunny had the skills of a thief. She even managed to sneak through the secret entrance in the Grand Duchy several times and steal a couple of things from Ophelia's room. And she did this at the age of 8. The main character remembers that she was caught stealing things and then locked in this room. Since this makes a brooch, the only thing Ophelia owns can be stolen while imprisoned in the tower. Silver has been hanging around Bunny for a long time, acting as if he were the overseer of a criminal, and so we can decide that the trickster Bunny somehow stole the brooch right out of his hands. The main character reflects on the fact that the real criminal perfectly understands the dynamics of the relationship between Bunny and Silver. A young girl sitting in her room does not understand who is knocking so late. And at this time, the maid opens the door and pushes her food. And the girl thought that if she looked at the newcomer, she would probably receive a hint. Bunny ran over and overturned the bowl of soup. Seeing this, the maid screams out if she has gone crazy and asks her about it, and then asks the maid Melissa if she is okay. The maid turns to the girl, screams that she is a crazy demoness, and reminds her that she already told her to behave quietly and below the grass. Bunny looked at them and thought that these were Ophelia's devoted maids. And they are the closest confidants of the Duke's real daughter. Apart from those close to him, they are the only ones who know that Bunny is a fake. And yet they did not even take any vow of silence. The great Duke Credel did not send them away in case Ophelia returned here. And because this is truly the greatest love for your daughter. Because of this, Bunny was subjected to all sorts of humiliation from all sides of the maids. The maid looks at the girl and asks if she still doesn't understand what position she is in. The maids report that if it weren't for them, the girl would already be swollen from hunger. Another maid says that they won't even get a word of gratitude from her and asks if she's going to complain about the food, because this is a much more refined dish than what she ate in her slums. Hearing this, the main character thought that this was soup cooked on wet rags, and they talked about it with delight. Melinda reports that she cooked it for her, and therefore she will have to starve today. This suggests that if she wants to go, then let her go and do what she does best, and that is begging. Bunny looked at the maid and thought that in physiognomy, the forehead is responsible for hostile luck, and her forehead is narrow and flat on the sides. The flaccid muscle is depressed. The eyes look like those of a rat, the tip of the nose is red, and the beauty is unhealthy. The ears are thin, like shell paper, wide open, with almost no lobes. The mouth is pointed, the lips are drawn back and pouting. And after that, the main character looked at Melinda and thought that this woman had poverty and discontent. The maid doesn't understand why she's staring at her like that and asks about it. And then he wonders if she's getting into trouble. The maid, Emma, tells her to calm down, and Melinda asks if anyone understands who she is protecting. The maid assumes that Bunny will suddenly run away because of her. Melinda says that she cannot run away from the Grand Duke Credel and asks the maid not to make her laugh. However, Emma claims that Bunny is Mrs. Ophelia's only hope, and if something happens to the girl, the curse will affect their little mistress, who is already weak. However, Melinda claims that she is still too kind to her. Closing the door, the maid pushes the girl to the floor and tells her not to even dare stick her head out of here. Seeing this, Emma looked upset at the girl and apologized for not being able to help her. When Bunny is left alone in the room, she says that now she knows who the criminal is. Late at night, the little girl heard Silver and his maids enter her room. He looks at the girl and asks why she doesn't run away like some kind of mongrel. At this time, the main character thought that she was dying of hunger, and so that she could not even get up. Bunny reports that she has found the culprit. Hearing this, the young master said, "She's not being a fool, because he knows that she stole the necklace." The girl thought that she had determined who the criminal was, and the gentleman did not even give her a chance to explain everything. She thought about the fact that the second prince turned 12 this year. He is tall and strong, looks like a teenager, but in fact, he is still a child. And besides, the boy trusts his instincts too much. Bunny understands that no matter how good he was, however, in order to achieve recognition, he must first gain experience. Silver shows the girl the brand and says that he gives her exactly 1 day. Because of this time, she must return in an amicable way, otherwise he will put a slave brand on her neck. The young master shows a piece of paper on which a drawing is drawn and says that this is a magic scroll. When it is torn, a vine is carved on the target's neck, symbolizing slavery. Silver claims that with such a seal, she will never be able to disobey her master's orders. In addition, her subjugation magic has a tracking spell built into it, and he talks about how he's going to do this to Bunny, and then he pushes her again. The main character thought that he was impatient and adamant. After all, he made a decision. He will not back down from it. At this time, the main character fights off the maid with all her might, and seeing this, the young master says that they cannot even hold her, and therefore he himself will cope with her. Bunny realizes that this is her last chance, and she points her finger at the maid and says that she stole the brooch. The girl thought that, according to physiognomy, Emmy had no inherited property and no ability to acquire wealth. In addition, rat eyes mean a tendency towards envy and theft. After all, stealing someone else's property is the easiest way to escape from the clutches of poverty. The main character understands that the maid has a head tilted forward, a shifting gaze that is always directed somewhere to the side, and such people do not look far into the future and act deliberately because they are only interested in momentary gain. Physiognomy is the ability to look at a person as a whole, not only at his natural nature, but also at the mind of thought, attitude to life. Emma, confused, asks the girl what she is saying. The girl thought that, in other words, physiognomy reflects her essence. After all, it seems, in this sense, that she makes no effort to change her natural inclinations. The maid turns to the girl and says that she doesn't understand why she claims that she stole the brooch, because she doesn't even know what it looks like. Hearing this, Melinda objects and says that Emma is not a thief, because she is such an honest girl and would not steal the young master's valuables. Another maid supports her and says that this is a ridiculous accusation. Melinda turns to the young master, reports that Emma treated this girl best, and she asks her if it's possible to abuse someone else's kindness like that. Bunny then suggests they go and search Emma's room, and if they don't find anything there, then she will humbly accept the brand. Emma looks at Milady and reports that she did nothing wrong. After all, she doesn't understand why she should put so much effort. At this time, the main character thought that she knew that he would not retreat until she provided evidence that she was not a thief. Bunny says that these maids are Mistress Ophelia's personal servants. She asks the Lord if Emma really stole the brooch, and when Lady Ophelia returns, will he allow the dirty thief to stay by her side? The little girl thought that when he mentioned his sister, his look immediately changed. And she argues that it wouldn't hurt to check one of her maids one more time and asks if it is. Milady claims that Madame Ophelia is affectionate and merciful because she will hide the truth and protect Emma, even if she really is a thief. Silver heard this and thought that something was wrong. After all, he doesn't understand why she suddenly started speaking so calmly and thoughtfully. And where has the despair that was always splashing gone in his gaze? And he reflects on the fact that she seems to have changed. My master turns to the maid and tells her to lead him to his chambers. Hearing this, Emma claims that it is not her. However, the master insists on his own and tells her to take him there, while he asks in a nice way and invites her not to force him to repeat this again. Silver tells Betty to get up, and he orders the knights to be called and told to wait in front of this maid's room. At this time, the main character thought that she was dizzy. After all, she is so hungry that she is about to faint. However, she gathers with all her might, and she understands that she can't do it yet. Betty reports that the maid Melinda, because of her desire to achieve recognition, is very two-faced and talkative, because she probably talks about the affairs of Duke Credel to strangers, and besides, the maid knows about the curse of Mrs. Ophelia and herself. And they are unlikely to allow her to continue working in the castle. This is a prudent decision. Milady reports that the third servant has the character of a swindler, from which he probably suffered indirectly, since she has nothing to boast of except working for Duke Credel's family, and so she will probably use his name for personal gain. Betty looks at the young master and invites him to investigate if he does not believe her. A few minutes later, Silver orders Emma to leave the prison, and he, screaming, says that his mother's earrings disappeared 3 years ago, and Bunny was brought a year later, so she cannot be responsible for this theft. And at this time, the young master thought that a simple maid was trying to fool him, because a fake who not only looks like Ophelia, but also wants to take her place, copying the speech and demeanor of the original. Silver reflects on the fact that it was logical to assume that this was the girl who was stealing her sister's things, and he thought that when the brooch disappeared, the maid knew that he would suspect Bunny first and took advantage of it. The young master orders to call an investigator and obtain a confession, and also to conduct an investigation regarding the rest of the maids, and also to find out about their affairs inside the mansion, as well as their reputation outside it, about family and friends. Silver looked at the girl and thought that maybe she died, but when he heard that she was breathing, he thought that it would be a shame if she died after everything that she had gone through for Ophelia. The young man, turning to the girl, calls her trash and says that she will stop pretending. And at this time, the main character falls to the floor. Silver picked up the girl, and he doesn't understand why she's so light, but looking at her, he saw that she was skin and bones. He's interested in whether she exists at all. He looked at her clothes and thought they were rags. The guy reflects on the fact that Milady has been living in the mansion for 2 years, and he doesn't understand why she looks even worse than before she got here. The young master looked at the girl's room and saw a lot of cobwebs, as well as the food she was eating. At this time, the main character remembers that grandmother says that physiognomy is not an easy fortune-telling, since it includes both statistics and historical research. During the Joseon dynasty, physiognomy was included in the list of exams along with Oriental medicine. The girl remembers that her grandmother fortune-teller was her mentor and moral support, and her only support. A girl with black hair reports that the times of the Chashang dynasty are long gone, and the grandmother claims that she is shameless and explains that no matter how the world changes, some things remain unchanged. The elderly woman offers to listen to my lady that the basis of prediction is the universe and its energy swirls. The main character thought that, according to her grandmother, another body and another world do not change the weather, since here there are still 4 seasons: the sun, the moon, as well as planets that make up the 5 elements. Betty understands that even though the world she was familiar with has changed, and even she has found herself in another dimension, then the principles of the universe remained the same. After all, every person is the universe, and human birth and death are analogous to its cycle. The location of energy in a person's body is manifested on his face. Reading on it is called physiognomy. After all, what is destined for a person is hidden in his features, and therefore, with the help of physiognomy, one can find out both his essence and his destiny. The main character thought that her grandmother's lessons were not meaningless, and they were useful to her in life. Lying in Bunny's bed, she thought that she was dying from pain, and her body was throbbing as if someone had beaten her. However, no matter how bad she is, there is no one to take care of her. The girl understands that her body is still small, so a non-stop rise in temperature can lead to a disastrous outcome. Milady is lying in bed, but her soul seems to be screaming for help and salvation. The main character does not understand whether all this is because she is in the body of a child or because she is in someone else's body, and she wonders where she gets such useless thoughts. It's pointless. Bunny thought that she was stupid, and no matter how far she stretched her hand, there was still no one here who could help her. But suddenly, the main character felt that someone touched her hand, and opening her eyes, she saw Duke Credel next to her. Chaos reigned here, caused by demonic monsters that sorcerers and their minions released into the world. It was not uncommon for an entire country to disappear from the map in a day, and when the world was on the verge of collapse, one hero dealt with the Demon King using his silver blade and icy power, and then he froze and sealed the core, which served as a source of life for the monsters. The defeated sorcerers were exiled to the north, and the hero, together with his brother, founded a new state, the Abyssus Empire. And if the emperor was compared to the sun, illuminating an already bright world. And the Grand Duke was the moon, bringing light to a world that was drowned in darkness. A clear and bright moon, casting a blue glow, and as a result, the Credel family began to be called the Credels of the Blue Moon. And now they have incredible influence in the empire. The girl looked at Duke Credel and thought about what a hero he could be, because for her, he is a deceiver who tamed an orphan from the slums and used her to ward off the curse. Bunny remembers when she saw this gentleman near the garbage. And after he asked if she would go with him, the girl did not dare refuse him. Lying in bed, the girl looked at the Duke and said that he too would never mean anything to her. The main character felt that the gentleman had let go of her hand and thought that it was a dream, since it was unlikely that the Grand Duke would come to visit Bunny. The girl remembers that he himself told her to live as if she were dead. The next day, my lady thought that a feeling of freshness was spreading throughout her body, and she thought that she felt just fine and didn't understand why. Bunny opened her eyes and saw a man next to her. She looked at his face and saw rounded eyebrows and eyes and a noble look. The slightly curved ends of the lips seemed to be painted with a brush. The hair is soft, straightened, and neatly styled. The girl saw that her posture was perfect, and her legs were so long, as if they themselves were reaching for the ground. After all, such people usually have the energy of wood, which is responsible for a clear mind and intelligence, and she realized that this was a typical future scientist. The girl examined the smooth line of the bridge of her nose. The shape of the ears is similar to that of a wolf. The tip of the nose resembles an arrowhead, narrow milk from the inspected outer part. Without emotion, he is cold, perhaps even cruel, and the guy looks like a lonely pine tree on the edge of a cliff. However, in reality, it is a wolf hiding in its wings and claws. The main character realized that in front of her was Angelus, Crendel's eldest son, and the girl thought that that was why she suddenly felt better and assumed that he could use his power on her. We are talking about forces that have been passed down from generation to generation since the time when the Abyssus Empire was called the Abyss Kingdom, because they are available only to those who have blue blood flowing in their veins. Grand Duke Credel has the icy healing powers of his eldest son Angelus. The main character remembers that she looked at him and says that maybe he was the one who cured her. Hearing this, the guy asks why he should treat her, and he claims that her wounds do not concern him, and he invites her to deal with them herself. Angelus claims that she never bothered him about such trifles again. The main character recalls that when Bunny was bleeding, he didn't lift a finger. The girl got out of bed and saw that this room was Ophelia's real one. Angelus tells her not to even think that she took Ophelia's place, only because she suddenly found herself in the main palace. Hearing this, Milady does not understand what nonsense, since she did not come here herself, but woke up already here. And she thought that she didn't care, because she was already used to such treatment. And the girl says that she is not deceiving herself. However, the young master tells her not to pretend. And he invites her to be honest with herself, because she shouldn't think that she is now part of the family, because it will hurt her more later. Angelus reports that she drove away Ophelia's beloved maids and ended up in the main palace, and probably because of this, she thinks that the whole world now belongs to her. Bonnie says that she only learned about the dismissal of the maids from the young master, and explains that they falsely accused her of stealing jewelry. Hearing this, the young master says that something tells him that the accusations are not entirely false. Milady thought that because of his past, she would always be suspected of something, and she realizes that Bunny is now the obvious victim this time, and she asks if he knows how the maids have treated her over the past years. Angelus says what's wrong with this, because he knows all this. Having heard this, the main character does not understand how he can say such things, or if he knows about everything. The young master reports that since it was their oversight, they decided to compensate for the damage with a reward. At this time, the girl thought that that was why he cured Bunny. The main character just wanted to calmly discuss the situation, but everyone in the Kreddle family is trying to hurt the poor thing more painfully. And she doesn't understand whether it's possible without this. Milady thought that it was good that the real Bunny didn't have to go through this anymore. Angelus reports that he does not know what she did, but her father allowed her to stay in the main palace. Hearing this, the main character was surprised and understood why she was put in Ophelia's room, and she thought that the Grand Duke had gone mad, since allowing baths into the main palace is the same as officially providing it to the world. The girl understands that she will be treated as an official replacement for Ophelia. At this time, the main character says that the young master mentioned that she would be given some kind of reward. Angelus says that he knew she would ask about it, and he knows that her desire is obvious, and therefore she will say right away that she cannot really wish to replace Ophelia. The young master claims that she would not even dare to call him brother when they are alone. After all, he won't let her do it. The girl replies that she hopes she won't have to call him that even in public. Hearing this, the young master was surprised. The main character understands that she will now live in the main palace. And at that time, she thought about what she hated, since she had already been betrayed once by people like him. And she thought that he should not even dream, because she would not tolerate such a relationship. Bunny reflects that a warm room and beautiful clothes, and all this was not given to her in vain. After all, in the end, you will have to pay for kindness, and these people will force her to do her duty in proportion to how she is treated. Milady reflects that she will not even be able to resist, because her every step will be constantly monitored, and the person sitting in front of her is already behaving this way. The main character reports that as a reward, she asks him to release her from the Grand Duchy, and she reminds her that he said that she would be given some kind of reward. Hearing this, Angelus does not understand what kind of trick this is, because she just said that she wants to leave the castle of the Kreddle family, and he thought that maybe this was not the same Bunny. The young master smiled and said that he would like her to succeed. And at that time, I thought that the girl thought that if she said something like that, he would try to stop her. Angelus looked at the lady and thought that she was stupid, because even now his hands were itching to throw her out of Ophelia's room. Milady reports that she is glad because she and he see eye to eye. The girl reports that only the Grand Duke makes such a decision, and that's why she would like to talk to him immediately. Betty says that she is sure that the young master will not mind. Hearing this, Angelus thought that this was a disastrous idea. After all, he doesn't understand where she will go when she gets out of here, and her path can only be back to the landfill, where there is nothing but criminals and mountains of garbage. The young master thought that he would see how long she could continue to behave so shamelessly. After all, she will probably soon come running back and say that she was wrong, and on her knees she will belittle her and not kick her out. Angelus reflects on the fact that he should be in his office at this time. The main character, being in a large corridor, thought that this was funny, since she had never been here, but knew exactly where to go. And she remembers that when Bunny was 8 years old, she discovered a secret passage into the main creator. Milady remembers that the girl used her talents only for theft and to steal Ophelia's things, and she understands that her behavior is difficult to justify. However, the main character does not understand why only she is to blame for all this, because for the inhabitants of the landfill, that very era of enlightenment never came. And in order to survive, they still have to deceive, intimidate, and finish off. Bunny had been like this since birth, and she wasn't going to change overnight just because she was adopted by the Kreddles. And besides, she only stole those things that testified to the love shown to Ophelia by the household. Bunny wanted so badly to be treated the same way, and she wanted to be a beloved daughter. However, members of the Kreddle family cannot forgive Bunny for what she did. And yet, if they tried to meet her halfway, and if they gave the girl a chance and took care of her, and then they asked why she did this, everything could have turned out differently. The main character opened the door to the Duke's office and saw him, then thought that he decided that this was the butler or his assistant, since he didn't even look who entered. The Duke asks what she forgot here, and at that time, my lady thought that he realized who was in front of him without even raising his head. The girl agreed with this and thought that it was good that he didn't kick her out. Bunny reports that she just found out that she was allowed to stay in the main palace, and she thanks for the kindness, but she does not need it. Hearing this, the Duke was very surprised and even angry. The girl thought that he had broken the iron pen by simply squeezing his fingers harder. Mr. Kreddle looked at the girl and asked what she just said. The main character looked at him and thought that even after adopting Bunny, he was so indifferent to her that she wondered if maybe he was not a hero, but just an ordinary bastard. Because the image of the blue moon fits perfectly with the hero's mask. Just one penetrating glance, his slanted eyes will overwhelm anyone. High nose, beautifully shaped lips, like scarlet petals. Both the face and physique are perfectly balanced and symmetrical. The main character understands that the Duke spent most of his life on the battlefield, but his skin remained flawless, like the moon god, guarding justice. The messenger who descended from heaven is the one who blesses the ground on which he walks. A naturally gifted man destined to live a long life. The girl looked at the Duke and thought that it was funny for her to listen to him being praised for his good character, although a hero cannot be a hero for everyone. The main character looked at the color of his eyes and remembered that he reminded her of blue water. However, there is not a hint of living shine in them, and instead, they look more like the bed of a river that has dried up during a severe drought. Eyes are the mirror of a person's soul. And now, the once dazzling sparkle in the hero's eyes faded, leaving only blackness like ashes scattered in the wind. And the girl doesn't understand how with such an aura you can even stay alive. The Count looks at the girl and tells her that he asked her a question. She replies that she would like to offer him something else. The main character explains that now that his daughter's curse has come to her body, she no longer needs to stay here. And since it is her fault, Mrs. Ophelia cannot return to the castle of the Kreddle family and asks if it is so. Milady says that is why she is asking to be sent back to the slums, and she claims that she will disappear from his sight so that he can live with Mrs. Ophelia again. The Count asks why she even got this idea. The girl explains that she has heard this from others more than once. Betty explains that if the cursed person and the bearer to whom the curse was transferred are in close proximity to each other, then there is a risk that the curse will return to the one who was cursed in the first place. And it is precisely because of this that Mrs. Ophelia lives somewhere outside the city. The Count wonders who told her about this, and at this time, the girl thought that these might just be rumors. However, she understands that the inhabitants of the castle believe that this is how the curse works. Therefore, the Kreddle brothers accepted her stay here. The man looks at the girl and tells her not to take this seriously, because it is not true. When the main character heard this, she thought that everything was lost. Since she was going to appeal to his paternal feelings, he proposed a reunion with Ophelia. The girl asks why Lady Ophelia was sent away from the castle, and the Count replies that it is none of her business. And at this time, the main character thought that he and Bunny were not going to share such important information, and even if she took the blow instead of his daughter, Milady informs him that if he wishes, she will give him a vow of silence, and if he wants, he can monitor her. She reports that it is not necessary to send her to the landfill, and in fact, he can simply exile her outside the Empire, and therefore she will go wherever he wants. The man pours the girls back to their room and says that he made the best choice for his daughter. Since she is here, and Ophelia is there, and this will not change in the near future. Betty thought that she was talking to the wall, and one word from him, and she would have left the castle in the blink of an eye. However, now she, on the contrary, will have to stay in this hell forever. The main character looked at the Count and thought that it was clear from his eyes that he couldn't even gather his thoughts. After all, in this gaze, indifferently watching the others, one can read only boredom. And such a person will never put himself in the position of another. Milady reflects on the fact that the Count does not show open hostility towards her, but irritates her no less than the other Cretels. And she understands that the Duke had neither the warmth nor the motivation to bother with Bunny in the first place. And yet this makes the main character incredibly angry. The girl turns to the Count and says that the venerable head of the Blue Moon family and thanks him for giving her a chance for a better life for a person of low birth like her. And she says that she understands perfectly well that he doesn't like it, and because she shamelessly stole Mrs. Ophelia's things. The main character wonders if he could meet her halfway just once. However, the man replies that she is safe here. The lady replies that for her, there is no difference between the slums and the Cretel family's castle. And at this time, the girl thought that, most likely, it was even worse here, since at least she had the opportunity to escape from the landfill. And then Bunny had no chance to hide from the local non-humans, no matter how much she wanted it. The main character reports that she no longer wants to go hungry and does not want to be criticized for no reason. And she claims that she doesn't want to fall head over heels from the stairs again due to someone else's fault, and she doesn't want to live like this anymore. And at this time, the girl herself did not notice how the Count came up to her and wiped away her tears. Seeing him, the girl reflects on the fact that the Count thought that she would cry in front of him. A man with long blonde hair reports that Ophelia has contracted an infectious disease and is therefore now in quarantine, and she will return to the castle when she is fully recovered. The Count tells the girl to go to bed, and even divine power will not help her if she does not rest properly. Hearing this, the main character thought that this Duke ordered Angelus to heal the fake. Betty thought that she had had enough, and she tells the Count that she understood him perfectly. Leaving the office, the main character thought that it was good that the Count clearly showed her what kind of attitude she could count on, because Bunny is just a tool to break the curse and nothing more. And thanks to him, she realized once and for all what a Blue Moon family was like. The girl reflects that if they want her to play the role of the fake daughter so badly, then she will do it, because she will hold her breath as if she were dead and will be obedient to please. And this is easier for her, since she lived like this until her death. The main character thought that as soon as he took his eyes off the nameless instrument, it would simply disappear without a trace. It will disappear and return the curse to its rightful owner. Bunny, as soon as she thought about what she should do next, her composure returned by itself. And so she will act gradually, step by step, because all she has to do is understand how she can escape from there. The girl ponders whether there is a way to avoid the persecution of the Grand Duke, and if only Bunny could use magic. The main character came near a large tree, and in the indicated place she was looking for something, and did not understand when the grass managed to grow so much. She thought that she should have taken a shovel with her. The thing the girl is looking for has already been found, and at that time, she thought that Bunny stole this thing when she lived in a landfill. Looking at it, she remembered that it was a magical artifact. The crook who made Bunny steal and brag about him at every opportunity. The main character thought that Bunny was a real genius, since she was able to steal from the thief himself, and she hopes that the magic contained within at least something can help her. Milady looks at the artifact, and she doesn't know how it works. But suddenly, this thing falls, and the girl thought that someone's voice suddenly rang out in her head. Betty thought that since she only had one earring out of a pair, and maybe it can be through magic, allowing you to communicate with the owner of the second one. The girl, looking at this, thought that she somehow felt uneasy. After all, that swindler said that he stole her from the palace, and she thinks that there is nothing wrong with this, since no one was looking for the earring. The main character looks at the earring, and at that time, she hears a voice that asks who she is. The girl thought that she was speaking quietly, but audibly, and that it was clearly a child's voice, and a very pleasant one at that. The characteristics of the voice complement the knowledge obtained through physiognomic analysis. After all, the main character hears a clear and sonorous voice, without any unnecessary vibrations, and she understands that even though the person on the other end of the line is still a child, the tone of his voice remains even from the beginning to the end of the phrase. Milady understands that, in addition, although he only said a couple of words, it would have been enough to attract everyone's attention. And she calls her name, and in response, she hears a question from the rabbit. The girl objects and says that this is her name. And at this time, she thought about who decided to call her that, since the name is really strange. Bunny hears that all 8 years of his life he has been waiting for an answer, but he receives some kind of rabbit in his interlocutor. Hearing this, the main character thought that he was still just a baby, and the most important thing was not for her to laugh. The voice asks where she got this earring from, and the lady replies that it fell into her hands by accident. The voice was surprised and asks when this happened. Bonnie explains that it was stolen a long time ago, 2 years ago, and so she probably visited many people. The voice asks why he should believe her. Milady replies that whether to believe her or not is up to him to decide, and he asks that he has been waiting for an answer for 8 whole years. She explains that she knows from her own experience that waiting for something without any guarantees is real torture. The boy claims that he waited patiently and still wanted to hear what they would tell him. And at this time, he thought that they were playing a game of silence with him, but it turns out that they didn't even hear him. The main character thought that an artifact in the form of earrings, with which you can communicate with each other, looks like a sign of someone's love. 8 years ago, the war had just ended, and the peace that followed was fragile. And this means that the owner of the second earring either died or lost it, but never bothered to find it. An unfamiliar boy claims that he decided that he and his mother were not worth looking for. Or maybe, probably, he simply forgot about their existence. Hearing this, the girl thought that, judging by the intonation of her interlocutor, the second option was the most likely, and it seemed that the boy knew who his father was. The young master says that it's all over, because this person means nothing to him. The main character understands that anger, hatred, despair, humility, because these are the horrors this boy went through in order to experience such feelings, and it seems to her that he has not tried any hopes for a long time. Betty thought about taking this earring for herself, and he says that he will have to find another way to contact this person. And since she is still unlikely to be able to return the earring to the original owner, she reports that this is the end of the relationship. But suddenly the boy screams and tells her to wait and not cut off the connection. At this time, the lady realizes that, of course, this is just an 8-year-old boy who had been waiting for a miracle all his life and in the end was severely disappointed. And she thought that his family seemed to have a complicated history, and she understands that she doesn't want to delve into it. The girl asks why not interrupt, and she suggests that he speak since he is listening. The boy asks her not to throw away the earring and said nothing more. And at this time, the main character thought that he had stopped her, and in the end, he broke off the connection himself. And she was just worrying about him in vain. Betty thought that she had hoped so much for this artifact, but in the end, it turned out to be useless. And she just seals it forever. Suddenly, the main character heard Silver calling her trash, and he asks what she is doing here. The guy claims that she is doing something strange again and asks her about it. After all, it's not surprising to him that she was so calm. And Silver looked under the tree and asked what kind of hole this was, and he claims she was trying to hide something. The girl replies that she was looking for something to eat. The guy was surprised when he heard this, and she thought that she said the first thing that came to mind because she was in a hurry. Silver asks in surprise if she eats soil now. The girl does not understand why the ground and replies that she ate grass. The young master cries out that she is sick, and she better eat the soil because in the north most of the grass is toxic. When the main character heard this, she thought that she didn't know this, and she claims that she thinks she ate something like that at a landfill and it tasted normal, although her stomach hurt. Silver ordered the cook to prepare food, and he brought the girl into the kitchen and said that she should eat it all. The main character looked at the table and thought about how much food she could eat here in just a whole year. The young master tells her to eat it all and says that he will then check whether she ate it or not. Betty understands that she is in no condition to eat this fatty food. And I thought that since she now lives in the main palace, this is such a new type of violence. However, the girl calms herself down and thinks that she doesn't care about this bullying. After all, Doa was told that the difference between good and bad is incredibly subtle. This means that any crisis can become an opportunity. The main character takes the bell and shakes it. A minute later, a maid enters the room and asks if the young mistress called. The girl asks if she can take this food to the dining room. The maid asks if she is talking about a large dining hall. However, my lady objects and says that she is not, and orders all this food to be taken to the servants' dining room. And at that time, I thought that she could not eat it all alone. And Betty understands that servants are allowed to take food left by the master. The girl says that she will only eat soup, and she can take everything else. The cook looked at her and thought that the food had not even been touched. The main character says that since it's late now, let her call those who work at night and warm up the rest in the morning. The maid says that the master ordered this food especially for her. Hearing this girl asks how she can eat all this alone and explains that she has just recovered from being bedridden due to illness. The girl reports that she is sure that the maid is seeing her for the first time in person and suggests that she simply consider this a small gift for taking care of her in the future and suggests that she not worry so much. Hearing this, the maid can't even believe it, and she thought that the young lady asked the young master to prepare all this food especially for their servants. The cook does not understand otherwise why the young master would feed her this fatty food if she had just recovered from her illness. The maid reflects that if the young mistress asked to prepare several dishes especially for the servant, the chef and his assistants would never try so hard. The maid assumes that my lady said that this food was for her, just so that they could taste these delicious dishes. The maid screams and says that she understood everything and will convey her words to everyone. Hearing this, the young lady says that she thinks she can handle it. The girl thought that you were a maid with rather wide eyebrows, a large mouth, and slightly drawn back and neat lips. And she's frivolous and naive, but still gets the job done. And this maid is pure in soul, but, frankly speaking, as naive as a child. The main character thought that she should treat her to dessert, since she helped her deal with her little problem. At this time, the girl remembers that she was in a hurry and still took the artifact with her and now does not understand what to do with it. She took it and said that she would think about it later. Lying in bed, the girl does not understand what the noise is. However, when she opened her eyes, she saw a young gentleman next to her who told her to quickly wake up. Betty looked at him and asked if he was crazy. Hearing this, he asks if she wants to say anything else. The main character thought that she should bow at his feet for waking her up. After all, he entered someone else's room in the morning and sits with his nose in the air. Milady asks if he was waiting for her to wake up. The guy objects and says he just arrived. The girl turns away from him and says that his lordship has a firm intention. Young master asks if she's even a little careful about her behavior, and she says it seems that her father did not hear a drop of sincerity in her words. Betty thought that she was tired, but she had no right to express her disappointment in his presence. After all, she must stay in the main palace until she finds a way to escape, and in the end, she is the only one who finds herself at a disadvantage here. The main character reports that his lordship probably rejected her request because she was simply expressing dissatisfaction, and she thinks that it is because she had been in the tower for a long time and was very glad to hear that his lordship would allow her to stay in the palace. The girl reports that she so wanted to get out of the castle, even if only for a short time, that she misspoke. And at this time, she thought about giving in to Silver and then seeing how he would react. Milady understands that if he continues to find fault, he will eventually realize that he is acting unreasonably. And she asks how she could end up in her peaceful life in Credle Castle, and she says that she has no other place where she could stay. Betty thought that even when she heard such offensive words, she still continued to speak, because he thought that compensation for the damages suffered by the maids would be enough. The main character reports that from now on she will be obedient, and as a clone of Mrs. Ophelia, he will do everything flawlessly and will never do anything that could spoil the name of Credel. The girl says that it would be nice if she could someday walk freely outside the castle, and at this time, the young master does not understand why he sees this image of a kind girl who asks her brother when she can leave the castle. And this image reminds him of Ophelia. Silver thought that this was all in the past, and he looked at the girl and thought that she was not his sister, because he must look at things without really paying attention to inner experiences. The young master does not understand what kind of person is hidden behind this insignificant face, and he muses that if the bunnies don't appear in high society until they come of age, then it would be important to pass on the curse, but it would also be necessary to think about what would happen after Ophelia returned home. The guy doesn't understand why she suddenly became calm, because her behavior does not yet inspire confidence. The young master turns to the girl and says that this is the last time he believed her. Hearing this, the lady doesn't understand where the last one came from if he never trusted her before. Silver reports that he heard that Ophelia's maids embezzled her money. The main character heard this and was surprised because she didn't understand when Bunny managed to get them. and she asks the young master what kind of money he is talking about. The guy reports that he is talking about monthly benefits in the amount of 200,000 fess, which she received for 2 whole years. Hearing this, the main character was surprised, because she calculated that in 2 years she would have bought a small mansion in the center of the capital with that kind of money. And she can't believe that they left all this money to the maids, and she thinks it's a joke. The main character understands that Bunny was isolated from everyone and abandoned. She asks the guy who sent this money. The young master replies that when it comes to the budget, then Mom is responsible for everything, because she is soft-hearted and therefore very upset that this happened. The girl understands that the Grand Duchess was a saint, and after the death of Ophelia's mother and her brothers, she became the Duke's second wife. And since she lived all her life in the temple, she probably didn't know anything until recently. Silver reports that it is clear that the maids have given her a lot of trouble, and he is here primarily for her reward, and she says that if she needs something, she can ask for anything. Hearing this, Bunny understands why he was waiting. After all, every time he started talking, he got on her nerves. The guy says that she can ask for whatever she wants, but only once and then, stroking her on the head. Milady rejects her hand and apologizes, and then she asks if he could take his hand away from her. The girl looked at the guy and thought that it seemed that he did not expect that she would be against it. After all, it's obvious, and she doesn't understand how he could even think that she would want something like that. And if she were a real bunny, she would already be crying with happiness. The main character turns to the young master and says that she does not need any useless things, which are worth nothing to her. The girl says that she will not play family with him, and she reminds that she will never call him Big Brother, and she doesn't think she'll ever be able to call him that. Bunny turns to Silver and asks if she can say what she wants. The guy invites her to speak. Milady explains that since she will be acting as Princess Ophelia's replacement, she thinks that a decent budget will be needed to match her role. And at that time, she thought that she had asked to simply give her the money without any extra action. A few days later, a large amount of money was in her account, and these payments were signed by Angelus Credel Yi, gave her the confirmation document. The young gentleman reports that, in addition, from now on, a decent amount will be allocated every month as the cost of decent maintenance. And at that time, the girl thought with delight that he really did it, which means he didn't lie. Silver looked at the girl and asked why she looked like that. She replies that now she can just be calm and not worry about delicious food. The main character thought that if she saved enough money, she could run away and build a big castle on a remote island. And if she wants to avoid surveillance and cash them out quietly, she will have to resort to some tricks, and she does not understand how much money she can spend. The lady looked at Angelus and thought that he should not be deceived. The young master reports that next year he will take about a month off to recuperate, and so he suggests that the girl just try not to get into trouble. After all, at that time, they will resume training. Bunny looked at him and thought that she didn't understand why he was grumbling like an old man, because he's only 14, and he, like a storm, suddenly appears and also unexpectedly leaves. The girl thought that the training was in a month, and she decided to enter the Grand Duke's office and read some books. The main character reflects that if she has a mentor like in her past life, then she better start preparing in advance, because she's old enough and smart enough for Bunny, and she's only 14. Suddenly, Milady heard a voice asking if she was there. She looked at the artifact and thought about whether to answer or not. After all, it's smarter to simply ignore him, and she doesn't understand why she should be distracted by this child. An unfamiliar boy claims that she left him, and he knew it. Hearing this, the lady said that if so, then so what? The voice says with delight that it means she didn't throw it away. And the lady confirms his words. She says that she doesn't understand why she should throw it away, since this earring is hers. And if she does this, then the boy will never have the opportunity to contact the person he has been waiting for all this time. Hearing this, the guy sighed and asked what this had to do with her. At this time, the main character thought that maybe she should just bury her on the side of the road. She asks the boy why he called her. He replies that he just wanted to find out if she was there or not. And then the lady asks what's wrong with his voice, because it sounds like a robot's voice. However, the guy claims that maybe she heard it. Milady thought that the timbre was different, because when she first heard his voice during their last conversation, he impressed her very much. And so she can now clearly hear the difference. And at that time, the girl thought that something must have happened. And for a moment, she thought about asking, but she didn't, because it seemed to her that it would be difficult for him to answer. The main character remembers that in her past life, holding back her emotions was commonplace, and so pretending that everything is fine has become a deeply ingrained habit, because it was unlikely that he would find it easy to express his thoughts at all. And besides her, there is no one who could listen to him. Bunny reveals that she is also lonely, and she has no one to talk to and nothing to do, and she has a lot of free time. After all she planned to do today was read a few books, and if he wants to tell her something, he can do it at any time. The girl did not hear the answer and thought that he was completely quiet, and she remembers when they first contacted him, he was much more talkative. Milady says that the weather is very good today and asks if he is outside. The guy replies that the sun has already risen. Hearing this, the main character thought that she had just realized how long ago it had been there. The guy reports that the sky is blue, and the girl confirms his words, saying that it is unattainable and pure blue without a single cloud. The boy reports that he sees a cloud, and it reminds him of a rabbit. The girl claims that it must be her. And after her words, the voice was silent. The girl explains that he himself asked if she was a rabbit. The guy explains that he didn't mean it for real. And at this time, Bunny reflects on how much time has passed since the last time she felt so peaceful and so calm. The voice reports that night will soon come again, and this will happen tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, and this will happen without stopping. Milady wonders if the night seems scary and endless to him. The boy replies that he doesn't like the dark, and she asks if this scares him, and he agrees with her and answers that it is so. Bunny says that in the winter night sky, if you look closely, you can see a rabbit. And also, if you connect the stars, they can become objects, people and animals, and even a rabbit. The main character says that you cannot escape from the darkness even by closing your eyes. After all, it will grow and become bigger because of fear. The lady recalls that she strove for knowledge more and more, and physiognomy, numerology, astronomy. In a room with curtained windows, she studied everything about the stars. The main character recalls that she was afraid of the dark, but wanted to somehow overcome it. And so, when night came, she opened her eyes and carefully examined the night sky. Because in the night sky, the bright moon and countless stars seemed to be rushing down, and she found a little rabbit there. The guy reports that this is an insignificantly tiny rabbit. The girl invites him to find it when winter comes, and she explains that it will be very difficult because the rabbit looks like her and she is watching him from the sky. Hearing this, the guy laughed, and the girl thought that it was all because he was obedient, and she was more pleased than she expected and simply happy. This moment of conversation with an unknown child made her forget about her situation, and no one interrupted them. The girl realized that in order to live, you don't need to please other people's opinions and tolerate the views of others. The main character reflects on the fact that next to him she can be herself and not pretend, and she says that she is just trying to cheer him up, and therefore, as before, they offer him to remain her interlocutor. The girl understands that if they continue to communicate like this, then one day he will open up to her and tell her what happened. Milady looked at the earring and thought that it was ridiculous, since first he calls her and then builds a wall between them. Bunny says she won't let him leave her because he's cute. At this time, suddenly, other guys threw a stone at the boy. They say that he is a pathetic bastard and doesn't even scream. And the other guy claims that he is not my person and cannot talk. A blonde guy reports that because of him, his mother ended up in the slums, and another reports that he goes hungry every day because of him. The guys claim that he killed Annie and therefore must die. And then they take stones and throw them at him. Seeing this, the black-haired guy gets up from the ground. And at that time, the guys who attacked him quickly ran away and called him a monster. The dark-haired guy looked at his fist and thought that if he fought with them, he would definitely finish them off. And then I wondered if he really was a monster, since everyone thought so. The sound of daggers, tearing screams full of pain. And if you just curl up on this street, no one will care whether you are alive or dead. The guy looked at the sky and said that he hated the dark, because he has no idea what he is capable of in complete darkness. The guy understands that he feels that he is becoming the monster he is called and cannot curb his rage. He remembers the girl saying that if you look closely at the night sky, you can see a rabbit. The dark-haired young man looked at the sky and said that the cloud in the shape of a rabbit had disappeared, and he realized that the stars would not dissipate like clouds, and he can't wait for winter to come. During this time, the main character reflects on the fact that the content of the book is radically different from what Bunny taught her mentor, And here the obstacle is one of two, and it is either he is not experienced or he deliberately distorted knowledge. The girl understands that the only thing she was taught properly was a common language, and whether it was possible that their conscience began to play. Bunny looks at the book and thinks that the ancient letters are similar, and she never imagined that Pak Doa's knowledge would be so useful. A common language is a scientific script that is easy to read and write, whether aristocrats or commoners. Because conservative aristocrats tried to protect their privileges by combining the ancient letters of book writing with the official one, the main character looked at the book and saw that the ancient letters in it were too similar to any Chinese character she knew. After all, book writing is similar to Chinese, where particles are combined to form a new word. Of course, they are not that similar, but the principle of connecting parts together and creating new words is somewhat reminiscent of Hanchu or Chinese. The girl understands that thanks to this, she will quickly learn to write, having only one basic book. And this reminds her of the moment when she just started learning Hangul to master Korean. The lady remembers that the teacher said that first she would read the book herself, and as soon as she understood everything well, she would read it to them. At this time, the main character thought that she would again be responsible for Bunny's education. After reading a few books, she reports that she hopes she can handle everything. Milady looked at herself in the mirror and thought that at first she thought that Bunny and Pak Doa had similar lives. Because the ancient scripts originated and developed, similar to the Chinese characters, the reverse method of counting days by dividing the year and 12 months based on the North Star. And it is accustomed to attach significance to the date and time of birth. The girl looked at herself in the mirror and saw herself as an adult in the reflection and thought that maybe all this was just a coincidence. After all, this world is ideal to use your abilities. Bonnie doesn't understand if there is a reason why Pak Doa was reborn in this world. Suddenly, someone knocks on the room, and the lady offers to enter. A maid with red hair enters the room, and the main character looked at her and recognized that this was the same innocent girl. A maid with red hair reports that she has gathered a group of maids who have volunteered to temporarily look after her. When the girl heard this, she thought that she was fine and was doing great on her own, and she didn't need anyone's care. The red-haired maid asks the girl to open her mouth, because her hand will fall off if she doesn't eat. However, the main character objects and says that she will eat herself. However, the maid assures that she will feed her, since it will be too hard for her. The maid claims that the doctor said that she is not eating enough, and therefore this is a bad sign and she needs to eat well. The main character remembers that a few days ago the family doctor examined Bunny, and he talked about how she needed to eat well. The girl looks at the maids, who think that she will break at the slightest touch or that the wind will blow her away. She is sure that the maids volunteered and thinks that she just gave them food and certainly did not expect this from them. Bunny suggests that it's probably because Ophelia is a symbol of peace who loves everything. Milady understands that she must eat if she wants to live, and this reminds her of her grandmother, who told her not to belittle and underestimate herself. Otherwise, he will end up living a miserable life. The girl remembers that her grandmother said that she was like a spring tree, and spring is the time when flowers bloom on the trees, and with her destiny, she will become a whole forest of spring trees. And for this, she only needs to wait until the winter passes. The old woman claims that the spring tree is a symbol of strong vitality, because it sank roots into the frozen soil and overcame the harsh winter frosts. However, Pak Doa died before that spring arrived. But even now, when she was in another body, Doa's fate remained the fate of the spring tree. And at this time, the main character thought that she should eat, because she needed strength so that she could live alone. After all, she will have to survive to meet the new spring, and wait for the day when the flowers finally bloom, and for this, she needs to try hard to survive the winter here. The maid says that she is a good girl and asks for a little more food. She offers to eat another piece and then asks if her stomach hurts. At this time, the lady thought that she still could not get used to such treatment. A few minutes later, the main character heard someone knocking on her door, and then he asks you to enter. The maid Angela entered the room and said that from today the mistress has been assigned other maids. The red-haired maid says that they haven't heard anything about it. However, the head maid tells them to return to their places immediately. The maid reports that the young lady has not finished her meal yet. Hearing this, Angela asks if they are going to obey the order. The maid explains that she meant that they could not return to their seats until the mistress had finished eating. And the red-haired maid confirms her words and says that even the maids are not bothered while eating and therefore she should let the young mistress finish her meal. Angela says that the newly appointed maids will take care of the young mistress's meals, and she suggests that they not be stubborn and do as they are told. Betty asks the maid what her name is, and she says her name, Candace. Ladies say it's a sweet name and she'll remember it. Hearing this, the red-haired girl asks why the mistress is not interested in her name. The head maid Angela reports that the maids who will look after her have already been appointed, and this decision cannot be cancelled, and she is sure that the mistress already knows about it. Bunny asks whose decision this is, and who gave her the right to command here. The maid argues that it is logical that she is responsible for the appointment of maids. The main character wonders whether everything depends on her, and whether she is in charge of everything here. At this time, the girl thought that Angela knew that Bunny was just a cover, and yet the Grand Duke allowed her to live in the palace, and she treats her like this. After all, she thought that the person who received the position of senior maid knew how to behave correctly. The lady looked at Angela and saw a hooked nose, which since ancient times was treated with great respect for this nose shape, considering its owner to be someone outstanding. The girl understands that the most important thing is the eyes, and if they look kind, then the person is brave and wise. And if the eyes are evil, then the person is smart, but with his good intellect, he does nothing except bad deeds. The main character looked at the main maid and thought that she was not smart enough to understand what was happening. After all, it seems that she has a very reliable patron whom she trusts, and if this is so, then behind her is the one who pulls the strings. Although it can fit naturally into everyday life, Bunny realizes that if she messes up, Angela might seize her right to live here. The girl asks the head maid if she thinks it makes sense for her to be looked after by maids she knows nothing about. The woman claims that the lady will in any case not be able to relieve the maids who have already been assigned. Bonnie says that she will say differently and tells her to bring the resume of these maids, and it would be better if she transferred the resumes of all the maids of the castle, and of course, including her. The young mistress claims that Angela said that this was her responsibility. Hearing this, the woman replies that she does not know whether she has the right to show them to her or not. The girl asks the maid who dared to take over her work, and she asks if she wants the main character to go and scold them for her. And she wonders if the maid thinks this is too unreasonable a demand. Angela doesn't understand what the brat is up to, and she thinks that if only she hadn't asked to see the resume, and she doesn't understand why they gave it to her. However, the woman realizes that she cannot get away with it and orders one of the maids to bring her resume. Bunny looks at the resume and thought that the moment of birth is a valuable thing here and the date and time of birth itself, because here the same calendar system is a year with 12th months and a week of 7 days. Therefore, if you convert them into a lunar calendar, then luck is determined from the moment of birth, so it cannot be changed until you become an adult. Among the 10 gods, she has developed Zhenyin, and this means that there is a high probability that she received a quality education and had a gentle character thanks to the help of her mother and the adults around her. However, from the age of 25, fortune begins to work very unfavorably, and since the strong energy of Shinja-jin emanates, it seems that on a sand spit where there is already a lot of water, the fire has been completely extinguished. Additionally, the Seong Munchungs clash with each other. As a result, even the ground, which can hold water, collapses. Perhaps at this time, serious changes occurred in the family that supported her, and the balance was completely upset. At this time, the head maid looked at the young mistress, and she thought that in front of her was only a little girl, and she didn't understand why she was so nervous. And then the woman screams and says that she has seen enough. Angela claims that she has wasted enough time, and the girl should be dressed as befits the Kreddle family. Bunny calls the woman over and whispers in her ear, asking if she is playing dead. Hearing this, the woman was surprised, and the girl thought that some things did not coincide with what was indicated in the resume. After all, she had made a lot of efforts to hide her past. The main character knows what this woman did. And when she was about 25, there was a catastrophe in the supportive family. The balance was completely disrupted, and therefore she began to have health problems. And most likely, the problem was related to the stomach. After all, given the level of medicine here in her situation, she would not have lasted long. The young lady thought that the senior maid looked completely healthy, and she says that she is brave. However, Angela says she doesn't understand what the lady is talking about. Bunny explains that the head maid probably knows what happened to Princess Ophelia's 3 handmaids, and then she says that she was probably mistaken because they were simply unlucky, and she asks if that's why they were kicked out. The young lady explains that they dared to touch the owner's things. They were committing fraud, citing family prestige and spreading rumors, and she found out and reported it. The main character asks the maid what she thinks will be the punishment for the one who came with the identity of a dead person to the duchy, and she asks if she can take full responsibility. Although from the outside, Bunny is a princess who was directly adopted by the head of the family and brought to the main residence, which allowed her to pretend to be Ophelia. The young lady asks if she wants. She will personally tell the owner of the house what the head maid did. Hearing this, Angela kneels before the mistress and says that she was wrong and she prevented her from having a meal. The young lady claims that she kicked out her maids without her permission and also at her own request introduces her people to her. The girl reports that instead of treating her like a princess, Angela dared to talk to her carelessly and brazenly, thereby committing crimes. The main character invites the woman to go and tell the head of the family about this herself, and asks if she can't do it. Bunny says that if she doesn't want to, there is a second option, and she must reveal that her identity is that of a person who has long since died. The headmaid says in desperation that she will do it, and then he quickly leaves the room and thereby almost knocks the maid off her feet. Angela at this time thought that this is a little girl. She thinks that she will just do it her way. And Anna reflects on the fact that the girl knows her secret, and this does not change anything, since she will only have to explain her situation to him and ask for mercy. When the red-haired maid entered the young mistress's room, she was very happy because she called her by name. Bonnie asks if she happened to meet the head maid on her way here, and asks which way she was heading. Reuben says she was going in the opposite direction. Hearing this, the main character thought that there was not much difference. Will this maid confess to the Duke or not? After all, in fact, everything went as expected, and she thought that if she was allowed to solve this matter herself, she would run to the culprit of it all. The girl does not understand who the person is who is hiding behind the headmaid and controlling the whole situation. Angela came to the Duchess of Yours and greeted her, and at that time she thought that she would first have to kneel down and say that her kind and kind-hearted mistress should have mercy on her, and then cry and say that Bunny threatened her, that it was unfair. The Duchess asks what happened. However, at this time, a gentleman enters the room. The headmaid, when she saw him, does not understand why he is here, and he is not as kind as the mistress. Angela says that she has something important to say, and the young master asks if she wants him to leave. The maid replies that it is not so. The headmaid talks about asking for forgiveness because of her negligence. Hearing this, the young master says, "Since this is the case, then let her tell him too." Hearing this, Angela says that she'd better come another time, and the young master asks what is it, because she said it was urgent. The woman replies that it is a secret. The young master, hearing this, says that the headmaid, supernatural information that even he does not know about, and asks her about it. The Duchess turns to the maid and says that everything is in order, and therefore she can tell. The blonde guy claims that if she says that, it means that Angela has secrets from her family. And at that time, the maid thought that if you think like that, then the young master hates this girl and kicked out those maids for the benefit of his own sister. The head maid reflects on the fact that, deep down, he also wants to put this rubbish away as soon as possible. And if she says, it will awaken even stronger desires in him, because new maids were actually selected for the fake princess. And the woman hopes that perhaps the gentleman will understand. She says that since they don't know what other tricks she can do, she formed a team of people who specialize in secret stalking so that they can control her well. The head maid informs that if the fake does not do this, then her every step will be reported. Since she would be working in the main palace, she would not be able to exert much control without them. And therefore, I would like to know whether it is possible to isolate it from the whole world and tame it only with food. The woman says that if the girl does not listen, she will die of hunger. Hearing this, the young master grabs her by the throat and asks if she is going to starve the child, who is already skinned to the bone, and he asks maybe if she wants to try it herself. Let's see this. The Duchess tells Silver to stop because this woman could die. The guy replies that people don't die that easily. The Countess says that she does not understand how such a terrible thought came to her mind, and he says that if you carelessly direct force towards subordinates, it can turn into violence and offers to listen to the reason. The young master lets the woman go and says that he sees no other explanation except that she lost her mind and wanted to die. Silver pulled out his sword and asks the woman why she said something like that in front of her mother, and he asks if she wanted to terrify a person with a weak soul. The maid reports that the mistress ordered her. Hearing this, the young master asks if she has really gone crazy. After all, he does not understand that the mother ordered to monitor the child, keep him locked up, and starve him. Angela assures Silver that the Duchess ordered her to do this, and the lady confirms her words. At this time, the head maid thought that the Duchess herself had told her to do this, and therefore she thought that the lady would take her side. And she doesn't understand why the lady is doing this. Angela explains that she thought this was what the mistress wanted. After all, the Duchess had become gloomy since Bunny returned to the main palace. The Duchess says that she hopes the girl does not hate her for being her stepmother. The head maid says that Bunny dared to bother a noble lady who never said a bad word to anyone, and she insulted the mistress even without knowing anything about her, and she is a fake who will one day be thrown out into the street. Angela claims to have worked hard to get to where she is today, and she explains that she did it only for the sake of her mistress. The Duchess says that she does not understand her and does not know where she heard such a rumor, and she asks if the woman really thought it was for her. The head maid explains that the mistress has clearly expressed her desire. The lady asks if she is talking about Lily. After all, this child likes her so much that sometimes she makes up things that don't exist. The maid says that the madam said that if she puts in enough effort, she can be promoted. The Duchess says she appreciates her potential, but she doesn't understand what this has to do with her terrible plan. Suddenly, the Duchess becomes ill and young. The master tells the maid that that's enough, and he, screaming, asks if there is anyone to take this crazy woman away. Silver tells the servants to lock the head maid in solitary confinement and not give her a drop of water for a week. Hearing this, the woman asks to spare her. Angela, screaming that the Duchess herself said that she was special, and that is why she chose her. The woman claims that she did all this for her mistress. Silver says that he doesn't even know why there are so many crazy people around his mother. However, the Duchess objects and suggests that he not say that since the maid probably did not like Bunny, and she should have noticed this earlier. The young master claims that she is so kind to everyone that they have completely lost fear and says that she is no longer a saint. Silver claims that there is no need to feel sorry for the servants, and after that he leaves. The Duchess, sitting in the room, thought that she was no longer a saint, and therefore she now had more power in her hands, and she doesn't understand how her maid got caught. At this time, Bunny reflects on the fact that she got rid of the head maid and threw bait, and so he thinks that they have already been caught. The Duchess enters the young lady's room and says that she thinks she has caused her inconvenience by coming. Seeing the woman, the main character would never have thought that the Duke's wife would come to her. The woman tells her that she can lie down as she only came to see her face. The Duchess reports that she went to the temple and prayed for her speedy recovery. The girl looked at her and thought that the Duchess was a saint, Fluvia the saint, who saved the world from destruction. And before the empire was united, chaos reigned everywhere, and magicians were rampant. She, Saint Flavia, helped the Grand Duke Credel, who was trying to seal the demonic beast, block and suppress the plans of the magicians. However, due to overuse of her power, she completely lost her divine gift and was abandoned by the temple. Her colleague Duke Credel, unable to bear it, made her a duchess as his second wife. Although the marriage was not for love, it was he who allowed her to receive sufficient respect as the savior of the world. Of course, this is not the only reason, and shortly after the era of chaos ended, Princess Ophelia was born from the Duke's first wife. The Guardian's daughter, born in an era of peace, naturally became a symbol of peace. Accordingly, the few magicians who managed to survive the chaos were targeted at her. Duke Credel needed Flavia to protect the daughter abandoned by his beloved wife. But despite the fact that she lost her divine power, Flavia was a saint and had significant experience interacting with magicians. But in the end, the magicians managed to place a curse on the symbol of peace on the day when Ophelia turned 7 years old. At this time, the main character realizes that it was Fluvia who transmitted the curse directly to Bunny, because she's the only person who knows how to do it. The main character asks the Duchess what happened. However, the woman does not understand what she is talking about and asks her about it. The girl says her hands are shaking. The Duchess explains that Angela came up to her and said something strange. However, she cannot say this because her words were too terrible, and she was so shocked that she wanted to make sure she was okay. Bunny looked at her and thought she looked scared, but she knew it was all a game. The main character looked at the woman and saw her facial features. The forehead is dark, the eyebrows are thick and neat. The corners of the eyes are not too saggy and raised and slightly directed upward. Large lips signify patience and virtue, and she also appears to be a lover of power and fame. The girl understands because her nose is high and straight. This means that she will enjoy wealth and honor, and a truly beautiful shell for a saint. The main character doesn't understand whether this means that she is an eternal saint who treats everyone equally and knows how to take care of the weak. After all, in the memories of Flavius, she was the first of the Kretel family to approach the despised and neglected Bunny. The young mistress says that the maid insulted her and explains that she did nothing wrong. And she says that she threatened her because she began to irritate her and began to make mistakes like those three. And after she pointed this out to her, the maid ran out. The girl says that since her father brought her to the main palace, she was recognized as his real daughter and asks if this is true. But when she said that she was going to tell him about all Angelina's actions, she ran away. The Duchess says she understands, and the girl reports that she thinks she hit the mark since the maid immediately went to her. Bunny wonders what the maid did and when she will be punished. She asks if she can go and look at it. The saint says that the baby should not think about such terrible things. The Duchess says that since the maid made a mistake by accident and she cannot do anything, her accusations turned out to be unfounded, and she suggests that the girl not do this again. The main character agrees with her, and at that time thought that if the maid was punished, she would look like a fool who fell for blackmailing a little girl. And in any case, everyone will still think that Bunny is ignorant and indecent. The girl looked at the woman and thought what she really was like, and she couldn't read her thoughts. After all, she doesn't understand whether the Duchess is really a person with a pure soul, as everyone says. Bunny suggests that maybe she is exactly the type of person who no one suspects, but who is actually behind everything that is happening. After all, it was Fluvia who suggested leaving Ophelia's maids in the castle. And the maid, who was on the verge, first of all ran to the Duchess, and also transferring Ophelia's curse directly to Bunny. The main character does not know how true her reasons are, but perhaps because she was a pure person and believed that all people in the world are good and accidentally got involved in all this and ended up in this situation. The girl looked at Fluvia and thought that something was still bothering her, and she didn't understand what. After all, her eyes, which shine with a bright, warm color, like the sun. From the moment the saint came here, the pupils remained motionless and frighteningly numb, like those of a dead fish. Bunny read a book about the saint in which it was said that she came from a church orphanage, but there is no exact date and time of birth. And she understands that at this rate, she will not be able to make a forecast, since she has been searching for a long time. The girl realizes that she searched the entire department, but found nothing. After all, the imperial pedigree, and if we take the Duke's family, then they are also relatives. Now there is not a single place where the eyes of the Kretel family do not fall. In the north, where the lost magicians were banished and the demonic beast was sealed away, the hero and his brother founded an empire, and this was the first Abbas Empire. Therefore, it can be said that the United Northern Kingdom was not founded by the current emperor, but by his younger brother, Grand Duke Kretel. Because the current emperor could not take the throne without military strength, family, Kretel, and therefore they are considered to have equal power. The main character understands that if she wants to escape from the Kretel family or from the entire empire, then she needs to gain similar power. And it could be the next emperor or temple. Bunny's existence is Kretel's weak point, and if they find out about her, they can easily take advantage of this fact and control him. After all, this will lower the status of the Duke and unfasten the imperial power. The young lady understands that if she acts too rashly, she will become only a tool for them to use. And then she will find herself in an even more precarious position than she is now. And the girl thinks that she will see who can help her. The main character reflects on what she heard, that the emperor was a libertine and had many illegitimate children, a crown prince and 5 princesses, but none of them were fit to be heirs. And Bunny understands that she cannot count on their strength. And if this continues, the empire will fall. The girl understands that if they fail, then Duke Kretel, a famous hero, will step forward, and maybe he will turn everything upside down and make himself emperor, and then everything will definitely be over. Suddenly, the main character heard a voice that said that he remembered something because today was his birthday. Bunny saw that she had hung the artifact on a chain and then congratulated the guy on his birthday. And at that time, I thought that she would talk a little and at the same time put her thoughts in order. The young lady thought that if she focused on studying the powerful aristocratic families, then she could go to the temple. On the other end of the call, the guy reports that there is no one on the entire continent who is not outraged by what happened 9 years ago. After all, he thinks it would be nice if at least one person remembered that he exists in this world. Hearing him, the girl thought that his voice was louder than last time, and she asks what happened 9 years ago. The guy reports that a lot of people died because of him, because he was born to start a war. Hearing this, the main character was surprised. After all, 9 years ago on this day, a rare revelation took place in the main hall. The dark-haired, black-eyed child of evil was born, causing a tragedy similar to what happened during the Great War. Great War. This is the name of the period of chaos, when wizards and witches were rampant everywhere and war engulfed the entire kingdom. Although it became the foundation for the founding of the empire, the war also claimed many lives. A child of evil with dark hair and black eyes. And the main character doesn't understand why she remembered this now. The guy remembers that the guys teased him because of his dark hair, like a witch, and they said that he didn't scream even when he got hurt. After all, his mother is crazy, and his son is a mute weirdo who doesn't even know who he is. The guys screamed that he would pay for your sins. Hearing this, Bunny asks if he is at the junkyard. The guy wonders how she found out about this. However, he did not hear the answer. He thought that everything was bad, and she did not need to talk about it. The girl asks if he gets sick often, and she explains that she heard the hoarseness in his voice and thought that he was sick, and she would tell him where to get medicine. However, the guy does not understand what she is talking about and asks her about it. Bunny explains that the road is quite difficult, and in such a way that he doesn't know if he can explain it in words. And if he can't find it, he invites him to leave a message. The guy asks if she heard, and says that he is the reason for the war. However, the girl asks if he heard her, and says that it is not his fault. After all, he was simply born, and could not be the cause of the war. However, the guy says that it is a prophecy, and the main character asks if he knows the time when he was born. The guy I don't know doesn't know why he should be interested in this, and the girl invites him to tell him, and she will prove that his statements are absurd. Bonnie explains that the date of birth is determined by 4 pillars, and that hour is the day, month, and year. After all, predictions are not good or bad, and each fate is different in its own way. And just like appearance, it can change due to actions. The future of a person depends only on him. Hearing this, the black-haired guy says that she is so strange and reports that it is approximately 2 in the afternoon. The main character thought that he had just turned 9, and if you add up the year and date of birth, then the forecast turned out to be a rather unique case. The girl saw the result and thought that if he did not become an emperor, he would become a beggar. She reflects on the fact that its pillars define 4 sections: fire, water, metal, wood, and this means that the gold or silver treasures will be countless. Lack of land means poverty, begging, and instability. With his outstanding abilities, skills, and intelligence, he has all the qualities of a great leader who can attract many followers. The emperor and the ground on which he stands will shake under his might. However, he will have to start from scratch. Since surviving is not enough, he must use this fragile, unstable earth as a support to change everything. The main character understands that if he does not benefit the country, he will end his life as a beggar, either absolute power or beggary. The girl thought that if they had been in her previous life, he would have had a good job, for example, a prosecutor or a military man. But in this world, everything blindly trusts the prophecy. However, Bunny doesn't understand how she can help him or how best to explain it to him. Suddenly, the guy says that there is no need to console him, and he does not understand why she is trying so hard for him. The guy claims that such things are no longer important. Hearing this, the girl asks why he is doing this and why, and she is interested in hurting him. The young man claims that even if it is not his fault, he does not understand that he will change, because the grudge will never leave him and he is already broken. After all, everyone said that his birth brought chaos to this earth. The black-haired guy reports that this is his destiny, and when he thinks about their numerical victims, he does not see the meaning of his life, and he no longer wants to wait for winter. The main character heard this and doesn't understand what he was thinking. Maybe he meant that he could freeze to death in a landfill. Bunny remembers that when night fell, she opened her eyes and carefully looked at the night sky. And in the night sky, the bright moon and countless stars seemed to be rushing down, and she found a little rabbit there. The girl remembers that she told the boy to find this rabbit when winter comes, and surprisingly, it will be very difficult. And she realized that he had listened to her and was waiting. The main character says that she wants to ask him for something, and she invites him to wait until winter. And don't listen to what others say, because it doesn't matter who started the war. The young lady says that the one who made this prophecy is important. After all, this man put him in danger without caring about his future. Bunny reports that a 9-year-old boy is suffering from all kinds of bullying because of a prophecy that is not destined to come true. And she asks if he thinks it's right. The girl reports that a prophecy on this day 9 years ago caused a tragedy similar to the Great War. However, she does not understand what the true meaning of giving birth to a dark-haired, black-eyed child is. And then the main character explains that the meaning is this. After all, people who suffered in the Great War should not blame the helpless child, but the emperor and the temple. The main character claims that he did not send innocent people to certain death, and people want to finish him off. She reports that the guy is not the only victim here. The girl asks the guy if it's okay to die for them, so she invites him to live until his last breath. Hearing this, the guy was surprised and asked if she wanted him to live. Then the girl replies that she wants him to live long and long. These words made the guy cry. The black-haired guy says that his name is Demian. Hearing this, the main character thought that in the end, she did not learn anything useful except the name. After all, she understands that she did not plan to ask his name until the end. Bunny didn't mean to be friendly, but somehow it happened. However, she understands that in any case, there are so many unhappy children here, and it all reminds her of the old days. The girl thought that it would be worth teaching him other constellations, but in vain she made him wait until winter. After all, she told him where the medicine was, but she didn't tell him how to find this place. The main character knows that winter is too cold, and she worries whether he will be able to survive it. And more importantly, can this child survive his cruel fate? Bunny suggests that it might just be a coincidence, but the combination of his day and time of birth meant the flames of the sun. Fire, which is the basis of life in heaven. He illuminates everything, driving away darkness. On earth, he covers all beings with warmth and saves the world, illuminating with warm light the ground frozen over the winter. The spring sun melts the snow and announces a new beginning. And at this time, the main character thought that they had good compatibility. However, she does not understand that someone who was blamed for such a terrible tragedy can become an emperor. The girl understands that even the current rulers achieve their positions through numerous sacrifices during times of troubles. Bunny reflects on the fact that, naturally, being an emperor is not so easy, because all his life he will be surrounded by blood and death, and everything is very unpredictable, and you can't trust almost anyone. The main character thought that if she became such a person for him, and she would be a dense forest for him. The girl thought that even if he only had a small spark left, he could ignite it in his forest, turning it into a big fire. Bunny realizes that their destinies are similar, and they can unite to help each other in a difficult situation. Leaving the Duke's room, the main character thought that they could not rely on the imperial family. She thought that she had enough of wasting her nerves, and she needed to come to her senses and deal with her plight. The young lady reflects that first of all, she must decide which side to take in order to be saved. Suddenly, her thoughts are interrupted by Angelus, who asks why she is coming down from the side of the office. He asks the girl if she is up to something again. The lady explains that she was studying alone. The guy heard this and asked what she was doing there alone. The young lady replies that she read the genealogy because she knows nothing about the Kreddle family. Hearing this, the young master asks about the fact that the elder brother still has not hired a teacher for her. And at this time, the girl thought that there was a high probability that he would turn out to be a chatterbox. Since Angelus is the next contender for the throne for charlatans, he remains a tasty morsel. The girl reports that he said she needs to wait a month until she recovers. After all, after exhaustion, the doctor said that she should rest. The young master heard this and says that she lived for 2 years in the mansion of the Grand Duke and earned the exhaustion that the poor suffer from and asks her about it. And the girl confirms his words. Angelus looks at Bunny and asks if she is underdeveloped. Hearing this, the girl does not understand what he is talking about. The guy claims that she gave all the food ordered for her to the servants and asks if this is true. The girl replies that it is true, and he claims that she is deliberately opposing him. The main character explains that after exhaustion, it is impossible to eat such fatty foods. And the guy says that's what happens when you try with the ground. And she says it's all because of the weeds. The young master claims that she greedily rushed to those poisonous weeds, and now claims that she could not eat what he gave her. Bunny answers that her body only accepts poisonous herbs, and she doesn't understand why he's looking at her so intently. Hearing this, the guy asks what kind of nonsense she is talking about. The main character does not understand why he is like this, and without fortune-telling, it is clear that he is full of anger. Angelus screams and asks if she has lost her taste by eating garbage from the landfill, and he claims that if this is not slop, then she will not have an appetite and asks about it. The main character says that she tried to slop from the landfill and stole dog food and tore off and ate tree bark, and therefore he is right. The young master asks why she doesn't respect him. The main character heard this, smiled, and thought that it was because he was a young aristocrat flaunting his fastidiousness, and she asks if he has ever gone hungry for 15 days. And at that time, the girl thought that he really didn't know anything about Bunny's life and wasn't even the least bit interested, because this is quite natural in a landfill, and when you are starving, not a single thought remains in your head except the desire to eat something. Bunny asks if it's hard for him to imagine that all the people there live like that. Hearing this, the guy asks what nonsense she is talking about. The main character explains that she couldn't do this anyway, given what happened to the Kreddle family, and therefore she thought it was good that she decided to do this. After all, 10 years have passed since the end of the war, and this is peacetime. War is something special, because the person with whom she talked yesterday becomes her enemy today. The girl reports that compared to this, rag soup is an expensive and tasty dish, and she will be grateful for this too. And at that time, the girl thought that they would always think like that. The young lady reflects on how painful it may be, but compared to the time spent at the landfill, this place is heaven on earth. Angelus, the life she didn't live before, now she's a princess, and he asks if she thinks it's reasonable to talk about malnutrition now. And so she lost her money and, like a fool, distributed food to everyone. The lady asks if it's really that important to him and explains that she thought it didn't matter. And after all, the real Bunny is not here now, and she does not understand why there is a need to interrogate her. The young master claims that he has an affair, and if she decides to do something, she must first tell him about it. The girl asks if he would listen to her. The young lady claims that he has never shown interest in what she eats, what she wears, or how she feels, because she believes that she was treated this way because no one cared about her. The main character says that she sees that he became worried when she said that she was sick and wasn't eating enough, but there was no need for that. And at that time, the girl thought that Angelus was like this because he wanted to torment her, but no, because this is an insignificant feeling of remorse. And Duke Kreddle must have taught him justice. Show compassion for the weak, and always lend a helping hand to those in need. The young lady reports that she does not reproach him, and as he knows, she has nothing, and will remain so until the end of her days. Hearing this, Angelus asks what she wants, and she claims that she is now a princess, and he reminds him that he said that he would give her everything. However, the girl objects and says that she, after all, gave birth with nothing and has nothing except the title of a false princess. And she understands that here her greed will be limitless. And at that time, the lady thought that if it were a real bunny, she would boldly grab his hand. And overcome with guilt, she would have hoped to enter the family circle. However, the main character thought that this time everything would be different. After all, she will desperately accept the sympathy shown to her from time to time and regain the health and energy corresponding to her age. However, the girl does not understand what will happen next, and suddenly many will think that she is Ophelia and will follow her. The young lady looked at the guy and thought about what he could do to someone who was undermining his little sister's position. And she says that if she places her hopes on his mercy, they may be dashed again. Bunny claims that he does not think that he will ever be able to stand as confidently as he does now. And so she says whatever she does and tells him to ignore it like before. And don't do anything you haven't done before. The main character says that as he said, it's true. After all, her state of health is not that of a princess. However, she will recover quickly and says there is nothing to worry about. And after these words, the girl leaves. But suddenly, the young master screams out asking where she went, and he grabs her hand and says that he is not finished yet. Angelus says in surprise that if he had not grabbed her, and at that time the girl thought that he would kill her, he decided to kill her, and she understands that there is a limit to everything. And she turns to the young master and invites him to be more careful in future. He explains that it's because she suddenly started leaving. The main character asks the guy if he knows what will happen if he carelessly gets close to a girl, and she says that if he meets the wrong one, he can ruin his destiny. And then she pushes him away and leaves. Angelus asks the girl if she is crazy. After all, she says some crazy things, and he doesn't understand whether he can get hurt because of some girl. The maids who were doing the cleaning were talking about how the Duke's son was threatening the princess. The maid says that everything is true, since Grandpa Tom the gardener also saw this scene from the window, and that because of her illness, she was kept in a remote place for several years. The maid says that even now the princess lives practically alone. The cook says that everything is true. Although the illness has subsided, she eats separately and no one even comes to see her. But this is all because the Grand Duke and his sons are busy. Maid Reuben asks if this is because the Grand Duchess died while giving birth to the princess, and she heard that the Duke loved his first wife very much. Another maid tells them to be quiet and watch their language, because Mistress Fluvia will not like it. The maid is interested in what is wrong. She said because the eldest of them, who fawned over the mistress, is now gone. Reuben asks if they want to say that because of the princess, her true nature was revealed, and they say she pretended to be another person. The other maid responds that it is true, and besides, it was the princess who revealed the sins of Melissa, Sarah, and Emma. The maid with dark hair says that this is what the head maid should do, and she cannot even count how many slaps she has received from her. And another maid says that she gave him a bucket with a hole in the bottom and told him to go get water. The maid says she's thinking about the money Melissa stole from her, and her friend asks if she is complaining to the one who lost 4 months' salary because of Sarah. The red-haired maid asks if she really is a symbol of peace, because serenity sets in as soon as she enters the main palace, and her partner asks if she thinks the princess is a saint. A maid who has been working in this palace for many years says that after the lady lost her sacred power, another saint still has not appeared. Maid Candace tells them to stop talking and not allow them to discuss the people they serve, and she asks what kind of frivolity is it to say that. Hearing this, the maid says that she is so correct, and they understand that if the butler notices, there will be serious problems, and they need to be careful. Maid Candace: at this time, I thought that everyone was talking too much. The symbol of peace is a saint, and if such rumors spread, it will burden the princess even more because she is still a child who is already weak. And the maid Candace remembers the young mistress, who said that she would gladly remember her name. And she reflects on the fact that nevertheless, it is true that everyone ignores her. And she thought that she was very sorry for this lady. At this time, the main character reflects on the fact that thanks to the work done, she understood something, because she thought it was Bunny's fault that she was treated this way by Ophelia's 3 maids, the head maid Angela and the Grand Duchess. The girl realizes that there is an internal enemy who is trying to isolate Bunny, and nothing will happen if she just sits quietly. The lady understands that it is not enough to just threaten members of the Kreddle family, and remaining in enemy territory, she needs a supporter. The main character understands that, even if someday she stops being Ophelia, she needs to find a person who will follow her to the end. Bunny looked at Candace and thought that this maid is a loner, and she is strong in front of the strong and weak in front of the weak. This woman knows how to maintain faith and duty, does not tolerate injustice. The girl reflects on the fact that the head maid disliked Candace because of her honest nature, but now she may not even dream of a promotion. The young mistress asks Candace what she usually does. The maid replies that she works in the laundry, and at this time, the lady thought that she was doing menial work that did not correspond to her experience. The main character looked at her and thought that she was like a pearl in the mud, and if she has the desire to get out of the swamp, then she would be happy to enlist her support. The lady asks if she has a family and if she has any brothers and sisters. The maid responds that she has parents and 2 younger brothers. Bunny looked at her and thought that her eyebrows looked like they were about to disappear. And this is because in a minor case, discord due to a quarrel with brothers, and in the worst case, the conflict can end in the severing of ties or even death. The main character thought that she would try to guess and ask the maid if her brother was sick with something, or perhaps they were separated as children, or her mother had an abortion. Hearing this, the girl does not understand why the lady is asking such a thing, and she assumes that all this is because of her family, because she is weakly healthy and far from them. But the maid objects and says that everyone is healthy, and she was not separated from anyone from the family. The young lady asks when her younger brother's birthdays are, and challenges her to tell them their birthdays. Oh, the maid answers that the second was born on the 23rd of August of the 2nd year, according to the abyss at 3 o'clock, and the third on the 5th year, according to the abyss. The lady asks if the younger one listens well. However, the maid did not say anything, and she says that she understands that her brother is still a prankster, and thank the woman for telling her. Bunny says it's definitely about the eyebrows. After all, fortune-telling says that an accident will happen to the younger brother, since the constellation Gemini is in the negative. And perhaps he will fall for the trick, but the likelihood of this is already high, because he is a child. And at this time, the main character does not understand how to say this more naturally now. Maid Candace says that she wants to ask her something, and perhaps it's off topic. After all, not all families have harmony. The maid explains that her mother had a big fight with her brother over the abortion and cut off ties. And he reports that many people work here who do not maintain contact with their families. And this does not mean that they are all unhappy. After all, they get married, create new families, make friends to whom they can trust secrets. Candace explains that she means that if family makes her feel sad and lonely, then later she will meet friends with whom she can have fun. Hearing this, the main character laughed and asked what she was saying. And at that time, I thought that, apparently, she thought that she was lonely. And no matter how hard the Kreddles try to hide their attitude towards her, rumors still spread. Bunny remembers what Angelus did in the hallway, and it happened because he has no control over his behavior, and these aristocrats who constantly forget that services also have eyes. The young mistress thanks the girl for her concern, and says that, as she thought, Candace is very kind. Hearing this, the maid objects and says that she is mistaken. And at this time, the main character thought that she was weak in front of the weak. The maid thanks her for her understanding, even though she was rude. Bunny invites the maid to come closer and says that she has been kind to her, and therefore she will tell her something. The young lady whispers in her ear that a child named Joey can't swim. And for 15 days, Joey had better stay away from the riverbank. Well, since he is a prankster, he most likely will not listen and asks if she is telling the truth. The lady explains that during this time, wherever he goes, let someone accompany him. It would be fine if it was an adult, but a child with a strong build would do. And the main thing is that he swims well enough to be able to pull out a person who has fallen into the water. Candace looked in surprise and asked if the young mistress wanted to say that Joey would fall into the water and an accident would happen. Bunny replies that there is nothing wrong with being careful. Surprised, the maid says that she doesn't know why she says this, and the main character thought that in this place there is no concept of fortune-telling, and if she tells more, nothing good will happen. After all, she understands that she only gave advice, and it is no longer her business to decide whether to believe it or not. The young lady orders, in any case, not to let him near the water for 15 days. As the maid left the ladies' room, she thought that it was as if she had seen the future. Candace reflects on the fact that this cannot be, because these are all just legends, stories about oracles, and she thought about whether her princess could have deceived her. The maid suggests that perhaps the young mistress is simply taking because of illness. However, she realizes that it's not that hard, and all she has to do is give him a few coins to look after him, because she doesn't know what else this brat can do. Candace enters the young mistress's room and falls to her knees, reporting that she saved the life of her younger brother. The maid understands that if the princess had not given her advice, but if she had ignored it, then big trouble could have happened. She doesn't understand how the lady could know about this, because he knows that the powers of the Kreddle family do not manifest themselves until the age of 14, but now it does not matter. The maid asks how she can repay her. The young lady asks her not to kneel as if she had committed some kind of crime. Candle says that although she saved her brother, she has nothing to give. The lady asks why there is nothing to give and invites her to be her personal maid. At this time, the maid thought that she just needed to be a devoted servant and follow orders. The lady claims that she remembers that she was the only one who supported her when the head maid behaved rudely. Candle says she just did what she had to do. Bunny says that she likes it, that she takes it for granted, because for her it is natural. The main character looked at the maid and thought that in any case she was a good person. And despite the fact that the head maid punished her every time, she remains the same. After all, he simply agrees with her and moves on. Banya understands that Candle is a woman of good character because she does not ask for anything in return and does not brag and behaves as if it is natural. The young mistress asks the maid if her brother is okay. After all, the weather was cold and he fell into the water. The maid replies that his brother came down with a cold, but he is healthy and small, and therefore he will soon recover and be as good as new, and she does not need to worry about it. Bunny says he never knows for sure, so he will tell the butler to send a doctor. Hearing this, Candace says that the princess has no need to do this for the sake of a simple maid. However, the young mistress objects and says that she is not just a servant, but is now her devoted maid. And although she is stuck in her room, she can still ask the butler for this, and tells her to just accept it. Candace looked at the young princess and thought about what she would follow for the rest of her life. When the young mistress and the maid left the room, they opened the door and knocked the red-haired maid off her feet. Bunny asks if she overheard them, and then asks if she hurt herself. The red-haired girl looked at the princess and said that this was the first time she had treated her so kindly. Candace heard this and screamed, asking how she could behave like that. And at this time, the red-haired maid rises from the floor and quickly runs away. Both the young woman and the mistress offer to leave her. Candace claims that this is ridiculous, and she can't believe that Ruby was eavesdropping on the conversation coming from the princess's personal space. However, she does not understand how she can be released, and assumes that she is a spy. Hearing this, Bunny tells her to calm down. However, the maid assures her that this cannot be justified, and even though she is nosy, she needs to keep herself in check because there is already a lot of gossip about the young mistress. Candace explains that it's not a matter of liking her or not, and at this time, Bunny thought that although they are complete opposites, they complement each other perfectly. The main character reflects on the fact that Candace has great potential, but she calmly does her job, not wanting to move on. And Ruby, with endless curiosity and sparkling energy, will find hidden and dirty pearls and make them so. Bunny invites the maid to take a closer look at her, because she is a very sweet girl and sparkles like a precious stone, and everyone is unique in their own way. She explains that she is the type of person who treats everyone generously. The young mistress explains that Ruby is not just a frivolous girl anyway, and this is a beautiful candle that burns itself and makes everyone around glow. The main character explains that Ruby is the kind of person who can leave everyone for the sake of her loved ones, and she says that Candace is made of solid iron and is weak to fire, but Ruby's flames will be able to melt her with their heat and turn her into a beautiful sword. Opening the door to the study room, where only members of the young madam's family can enter, invites the maid to treat the red-haired maid well, as she is quite sensitive. When the maid was left alone, she thought that the young lady was a fairy. After some time, Candace returned to her work, and the maids ask her if it is true that the princess saved her brother's life and even sent a doctor to him. They say that Ruby informed them and said that the princess personally took care of her. Hearing this, the maid thought that the princess had said that if you looked closely at Ruby, she would turn out to be very cute. But no matter how much she looked, she did not understand what she was talking about. Candace thought that Ruby was a fool who only knew how to talk, and even when she was dying, she would blab out anything and everything. And she doesn't understand why not remain silent, but go and tell everyone. Walking along the corridor, the maid saw two ladies and then greeted the Duchess of Marseille, who was the godmother, the mother of the Credle children, and the future guardian of Ophelia. And also with her was Baroness Garnet, maid of honor, Duchess of Marseille. Candace doesn't understand why the Duchess suddenly came. After all, since Fluvia appeared, she almost stopped visiting the Duke's residence. The maid of honor looked at her and said that she was not even capable of doing ordinary things, and also called herself a maid. A woman in a green dress asks if she is Princess Ophelia's maid, and if this is so, then let him inform the princess that the Duchess of Marseille asks for a meeting, and she says that they will wait for her in the living room. Candace says she's at risk of being rude, but asks if she can say something. The maid says that the princess has gone through a difficult time and has not yet fully recovered, both physically and mentally, and she believes that it is her duty to cut off everything that bothers the princess's mind and body. Hearing this, the maid of honor laughed and asked why she was so protective of her, and he claims that the princess decides who to meet, not she. Garnet asks if her mentor taught her this. Suddenly, the Duchess says that her maid of honor has stopped, and she explains that she was the one who was rude without warning in advance, and she looked at the maid and invited her to raise her head. Baroness Marcel smiles and says that the princess has a faithful maid, and they say that she saved her younger brother from death, and so she's just wondering if her son has a chance. Suddenly, Silver appears in the hallway and asks why Godmother arrived unannounced. The Baroness explains that she came after hearing that her goddaughter had recovered and returned home. Marcel claims that she was in too much of a hurry to hear this good news and therefore did not inform them, and then ask for forgiveness for your insolence. Silver thanks the Baroness for her kind words and says that, unfortunately, Ophelia is not in a position to receive guests right now. The young master asks why he doesn't refuse the honor and serve her. The Baroness says that she cannot take up his precious time and asks if he could take her to the Duchess. Marcel explains that they haven't seen each other for a long time and that they could have a cup of tea. Candace thought that it seemed to her that the gentleman was unhappy with this visit. However, she still needs to find the princess and report the Duchess's break-in. When the maid opened the door, she saw that Reuben was in the mistress's room. The young lady explains that she already heard that the Baroness arrived because Ruby told her that. Hearing this, the maid thought that this maid had rushed faster than the wind. Bunny says that a lot of time has passed since she last spoke with Madame Marcel, and therefore they don't remember her well. And she says that Ruby told her about her. And so she asks the maid not to be so cruel to her. The main character invites the red-haired maid to continue talking, and Ruby says that Madame Marcel is the godmother of her and her young masters. The maid explains that when the young lady was born, the Grand Duke was fighting a demonic beast. He asked Marcel to take care of the children if something went wrong, and her trust was so great that he was ready to ask for such a thing. Ruby reports that they say Marcel's family has been very loyal to him since the founding of the empire. They also say that Madame was close to his late wife and grew up like her sister. At this time, Baroness Marcel and the Duchess are drinking tea in her room, and Madame thanks the Duchess for making time for her. Fluvia suggests that the young lady not take it into her head, because it is her responsibility to serve the guests who visit the mansion, but claims that she, on the contrary, did not prepare for her visit. Baroness Marcel replies that this was not necessary, but nevertheless thank you for your understanding. She says she doesn't like tea unless it's made by her servant, and the older she gets, the more picky she gets. The Baroness argues that hospitality to guests is the most important thing and asks if she is pushing herself too hard. Marcel reports that she heard that the lady got sick because she let some mongrel into the mansion. Hearing this, Lady Fluvia's maid of honor thought about what she was doing, referring to the maid and hinting that Lady Fluvia was from the orphanage, and it actually looks like she hates Madame Saint. Meanwhile, in young Mistress Candace's room, she screams and says to Ruby that if she keeps talking about this, she'll get angry. The girl makes an excuse and says that the lady is just curious. The young mistress invites the red-haired maid to continue talking, and she explains that Madame Marcel was categorically against the marriage between the Duke and Madame Fluvia. However, after Mrs. Fluvia began living in the mansion, they practically stopped communicating. The maid says that Marcel valued her friendship with Eleanor very much and was upset by the Duke's decision. At this time, Madame Fluvia reports that she is well aware that her position is much lower than that of the deceased wife of the Grand Duke, and no wonder she doesn't like it. Hearing this, the Baroness asks how she dare question his lordship's choice. Madame Marcel says that until now she could not interfere in family affairs, and it must have been difficult for Fluvia to take on the role of mistress of such a large family as Credel. Moreover, she entered it without knowing anything. Baroness Marcel announces that she will select several maids and send them to them. She explains that they are reliable and have solid experience, and to some extent they will be able to make up for the shortage of servants. Mrs. Fluvia thanks for your concern, and the Baroness replies that there is no need for thanks, since she should be busy preparing for the next meeting in Lilia. Credel's wife says that she did not expect Madame Marcel to be interested in such a small gathering. However, the Baroness replies that this meeting is being arranged by the Grand Duchess. At this time, Reuben informs the young lady that there was a story that Madame Marcel was an influential person in society and blocked the activities of Madame Fluvia in public affairs. When the main character heard this, she thought that they were at enmity, and the maid says that in any case, she always sent gifts to her godchildren on their birthdays. At this time, Candy remembers that Madame Marcel came here because of her son. The red-haired maid says that she heard that the Baroness has a son who is sick, and maybe because of this she decided to visit her, because she saved Candace's brother, and therefore the Baroness hopes for the young mistress. Bunny thought about the fate of the child Marcel, whom she saw in the family tree. The main character reflects on the fact that if there is a lot of water in the riverbed, the earth will become muddy and washed away. The earth symbolizes the skin, so you need to be careful about skin diseases. The energy of fire is also weakened by water. When it comes to it, the heart becomes weaker and the eyes may become blind. And Bunny doesn't understand whether he's really so sick that the Duchess came running to her after hearing only rumors. The main character thought that she could not do anything about her child. At this time, Madame Marcel asks the Grand Duchess how the young Madame's training is going, and she wonders if they don't have any etiquette teacher for the position, then she can recommend a lady she knows, or can teach her herself. Fluvia says that, unfortunately, Viscount Leiden is already training her. At this time, the maid of honor told the Baroness in her ear who this man was. And hearing this, Marcel says that this is quite unexpected for her, because she says that she heard that he has no flaws in his knowledge of etiquette. Baroness Marcel asks if they entrusted the princess's education to someone who bought their title, and she claims she finds the decision a little difficult to understand. The lady's maid of honor heard this, and thought that it was because Bunny was a fake princess. She doesn't understand what Madame Fluvia will do. The Grand Duchess explains that there is nothing to understand here, and the Baroness says she doesn't understand. Fluvia explains that Viscount Leiden is very educated, and he is perfectly suited for training Princess Ophelia at the moment. The Grand Duchess says she shouldn't worry about it, because they don't have any difficulties. After all, the problem that worries the Duchess of Marseille does not exist, and this is nonsense. Leaving the mansion, Baroness Marcel is accompanied by the young Mr. Silver, and he looks at her and asks if his godmother is okay. The Baroness explains that she always feels dizzy after talking to her, but she thinks she said something that would upset her. Baroness Marcel suggests that maybe it's because she's a person who doesn't give anything away, and she doesn't like it. The woman claims that she lacks humanity. Silver suggests that his godmother should not be so angry with his mother. Hearing this, the Baroness asks if he is talking about the Grand Duchess, and he claims that this woman is the Duchess, not his mother. The guest claims that she is his mother, Eleanor, who was a close friend to her. Suddenly, the Baroness heard the young lady's maid calling her. The maid reports that the princess asked her to give Madame a letter. At this time, Bunny thought that they say that the enemy of his enemy is her friend, and therefore she cannot make a sick person feel better. Marcel, sitting in the carriage, thought that she had seen Ophelia only once, and she was small and did not even remember her face. And then she reads the letter, which says that the young lady welcomes her. The woman reads that the letter says that the young lady almost never wrote letters, and therefore may make some mistakes, and therefore asks to be patient and understand. The letter says that she must have arrived after hearing rumors, but she cannot heal a sick person. After reading this, the Baroness thought that it was clear to her, and she did not understand why she was still expecting something. The main character wrote in a letter that her son was born with poor health, so it may be difficult for him to live a long life. But in any case, this does not mean that we should lose hope. Betty says in a letter that her son, although physically weak, will live longer than his mistress. However, this does not mean that Madame will die soon, because all separations are sad, but what could be more painful than experiencing the death of your own child? The young lady in the letter says that in the end she does not want the Baroness to worry so much and invites her to think about it. After all, when something is lost, something new is gained, and of course, this is kindness. When the young lady wrote the letter, she thought that her son was prone to illness, but his body was still much weaker than others. And she understands that a weak body does not mean kindness, and his personal qualities, like the disease, are increased to the maximum. Personality is a heart that loves the limitless. Betty realizes that her son Marcel has grown up smart, wise, and honest thanks to his mother, and with his consideration for other people, he is quite popular. The girl writes that good deeds done from the heart bring good luck, and she asks if Madame ever wondered why he was born with such poor health. The main character writes that if he does not know how to wield a sword, then the strongest knight can teach him how to do so, and they say that every person is born with a different light, and the fact that he was born different from other people does not mean that his light is dimmer. The young lady writes a letter saying that this radiance is simply different from others. Baroness Marcel, having read the letter, smiled, because she could not even imagine that Ophelia would write such kind words. The maid of honor asks Madame why she is crying. The woman replies that Ophelia has simply grown so much since their last meeting. However, she is patiently waiting to meet Knox. The main character heard the young master calling her, and when she heard this, she was surprised, and thought that the period of recovery appointed by Angelus was over, and she lost track of time after arriving here. The girl looked out the window and thought that winter had come to the Empire abruptly and hit hard. The main character remembers that she hasn't received any messages since then, and she wonders if he's okay. And then she touched her artifact, which she hung around her neck. The young lady understands that the conversation with Demian may be long, and now is not the right time for this. Walking down the corridor, the girl realizes that it is dangerous to own such an expensive artifact in a landfill, and she thinks he will have to hide it carefully. Betty understands that since he told her his name, he will definitely call if anything happens, and she understands that she must be in touch, no matter what. When the main character entered Angelus's office, she thought that this was the first time she had seen this office, and this was the next room after the meeting room. And she remembers that they say that the young master is a workaholic, but he is only 14 years old, and she does not understand why he is in such a hurry to grow up. Betty remembered that the young master had been confirmed as the successor. When the main character entered the office, Angelus said that he advised her to be more careful and gave her time to adapt. The young master looks at the girl and says that she was not sitting out of the blue. Hearing this, the lady thought that she hoped he would continue to plow and lay down from overwork. However, the guy claims that he never gave her the right to disrupt the order of the main palace, and therefore suggests that the girl no longer act rashly. Hearing this, the main character thought that there was order in the palace, and that now this chaos is called that. Angelus asks what kind of letter she sent to Madame Marcel. Bunny replies that it's nothing. After all, Madame said that she was uneasy in her soul, so she wrote a couple of supportive words. Hearing this, the young master, screaming, says that she did not come to her for this, and he asks how everyone began to believe that she is the next saint. The main character thought that she had not done anything special, but this rumor spread within a couple of days, and this means that rotten people have destroyed the existing order. The young miss thought that she had let the gossip spread, but there was nothing wrong with it to enhance her reputation, and she tells the gentleman that she doesn't even know why this happened. Angelus states that he will keep an eye, and if Ophelia's reputation suffers even a little, she will go back to the tower. Hearing this, the girl thought that his words were really scary, and she agrees with him. The young master says that if Mom hears about these rumors, her heart will be broken. And he understands that usually divine power is transferred to the next generation only after death. And he asks if she didn't think that the rumor about the lost power would come up every time people saw her. Hearing this, the main character looked at the guy and thought that he was not upset, but was simply trying to isolate the innocent Bunny. And the reason he brought this up is because of the Grand Duchess. Because Bunny is the villain, and Fluvia is the victim. And in the eyes of the Kretel family, she is a brave hero. The young lady apologizes and says that she didn't think about it, and therefore will ask the servants to stop talking. And at that time, I thought that if she had told them about the Duchess's suspicious behavior, they would not have believed her, because there was simply no evidence. Angelus reports that it is not her fault. Hearing this, the girl thought that they were keeping Bunny and didn't even know about it. But the young master claims that if gossip spreads outside the palace, people might try to contact them, and then his sister will be in danger. At this time, the main character thought that they were the biggest danger, and if Bunny's identity is revealed, it will be a huge problem. The girl thinks that maybe it is because of her reputation as a saint, but she is glad that she allowed the gossip to spread, because it provokes the Duchess. The main character understands that if this awakens conflict between the temple and the Kretel family, then this will be the icing on the cake. The name of the youngest daughter of the symbol of peace will be cursed, because they brought a child to take the place of the saint. And she doesn't understand whether the temple will forgive the Grand Duchess for this. Bunny thought that it would be great if the temple could take care of the Kretel family, and at this time, the young master suddenly takes her by the shoulders and asks her to concentrate. And he says that this is not just like that, because she can be condemned even for accepting the curse. Angelus asks if she wants to be in a loop. The girl looked at his very serious face and replied that, of course, she didn't want that. The young master says that he hopes the girl understands and reports that classes will begin soon. And he explains that, since she now lives in the main palace, she must perfect all the skills of a young lady and therefore must attend these classes. Bunny doesn't understand why the young master warned her. After all, in the past, he would have simply scolded him, and that was all. And she wonders why he turned his hypocrisy on Bunny. And the girl understands that this is not so bad, but even so unpleasant. The main character reflects on the fact that in any case, Angelus himself admitted that the behavior of the Archduke's wife was caused by his loss of her divine power. And she doesn't understand how to move forward without manipulation. The young lady saw the man and does not understand who he is, and the content of the book is radically different from what Bunny was taught by her mentor. However, it must be one of two things. Either he is not experienced, or he deliberately distorted knowledge. The girl remembers that the teacher said that he would first study the book himself, and as soon as he understood everything well, he would read it to her. The teacher says that he is Viscount Leiden, and he did not expect the girl to return. The main character recalls that 2 years ago he was responsible for Bunny's education. Usually, raising the child of an aristocrat is entrusted to a lady of high rank in society. But who would agree to teach a beggar like her? It was the Viscount who was in charge of Bunny when the Grand Duke needed help. Viscount Leiden. He came from a peasant family, but at a time when magicians were raging everywhere, he sold supplies to those in need. And then I bought a title with this money. The Viscount is an example of a self-made man, and therefore he was able to become a teacher despite the fact that he did not belong to the aristocrats. He had impeccable knowledge of etiquette and culture, and he thought that Bunny's training would help him rise even higher, but he was very mistaken. Sitting in class, Bunny wonders if she can do something specific. The teacher explains that to win someone's favor, you need to show what she is good at, and to do this, she must first try to change the tone of her voice in her behavior. The Viscount invites the girl to think about who her relatives like best. The girl replies that she knows such a person, and this is Ophelia. The main character recalls that at first, he outlined only the basics that everyone could understand and did not go into the essence. Upset, Bunny says it's no use and explains that they hate her. He explains that it's because they're not alike, and that's why he thinks she feels rejected. The girl asks the teacher what she needs to do to become like Ophelia, and he replies that first she needs to change her outfit. Hearing this, Bunny claims that she has no money and does not know what kind of things Ophelia preferred to wear. The Viscount assumes that there might still be some clothes left in her room and asks if she can go and have a look. However, the girl claims that her room is in the main building, and this is the reason why Bunny was so reluctant to steal. The teacher talks about seeing a strange book in the main library, and it spoke of a change in fate. Hearing this, the girl wonders where she is standing. He explains that you are in the corner of the library and at the very end of the row, and he thinks there are many, many more interesting books out there. At this time, the main character realizes that no one will listen to what Bunny went through. Since Viscount Leiden did not put his hands to it, he simply encouraged action. The main character thought that even if she revealed his plans and exposed him, he would find a loophole and run away. The young lady realizes that in the eyes of others, he must appear to be a patient teacher who cares for difficult children. And then she says that she is also pleased to see him. The teacher reports that he was worried because he heard that she had a difficult time, and therefore he is glad to see her in health. He claims that the young lady is still as sweet. Hearing this, the lady thought that she undoubtedly still looked stupid, but he must have heard that the headmaid had been replaced, but Bunny was still being ignored. The main character remembers that the teacher has already succeeded in something because he tricked Bunny into causing an accident, so this is not at all surprising. The girl realizes that in fact, in the long run, it was slightly more profitable for him to train her than to deceive her, because, having gained trust, Bunny would never forget his help, even if she took on the role of a real daughter. The main character understands that the Viscount is a man so wise that he profited from the war and became an aristocrat. He chose not to use Bunny, but to frame her. After all, she is a person with real power. At this time, young and mistress asks if he will teach her again. Hearing this, the teacher asks if she thinks he is not worthy. However, the girl assures him that this is not at all true and says that she would really like it. Milady reports that immediately after she returned to the main mansion, she checked his date of birth. Hearing this, he was surprised, and she explains that she really wanted to give him a gift as a sign of gratitude. And at this time, the girl thought that she knew that he was going to join the Duchess's manipulation. The young lady smiles and tells him to look forward to it. The teacher invites the girl to finish reading and start etiquette lessons. He claims that ladies are still bad at writing, and he will interpret. He asks what the girl would do if she met someone at an event who knows her, but has not yet introduced herself to him. The lady replies that she doesn't know, but will wait for him to say hello. And the teacher says that she said it right, and he explains that it is not allowed to greet someone whose status is higher than her. The Viscount explains that most of them are of lower rank than Milady, and therefore she will have to wait for another person to speak to her. The first one with a higher rank should not speak first. Hearing this, the girl thought that if she did this, people would criticize her for ignoring her. they can also be judged for being too modest. The teacher claims that she should be a leader, not a follower, and a modest outfit will serve as an indicator for people from rich circles. At this time, the girl thought that she did not understand what modest means, because the book says that dressing this way is basic politeness. The main character looked at the teacher and thought that nothing had changed. After all, even Bunny, who came from the landfill, would not be able to understand this nonsense. The young lady felt bored in the lesson, and she thought about whether the teacher would listen to himself from the outside. The Viscount turns to the girl and says, "That's all for today." Hearing this, the lady was very happy. The teacher says that they will see each other tomorrow and proposes to the girl, "Don't forget to repeat the study before going to bed." The main character looked at the teacher and thought that he had evil snake eyes. They were quite small, and you could see a lot of protein in them. Narrow jaw and bones stick out strongly, and there are a lot of small scars and acne on my face. The girl thought that she had never met such an unlucky person even in her previous life, and luck must be passing him by, and he is a loser. A teacher is a person who has the right thoughts, positive beliefs, and he realizes what he lacks and tries to make up for it. He does the right things with a clear mind, lives without a goal, and does not demand anything from others. However, the main character understands that he should stay away from people who are trying to take advantage of him, because he may become infected with bad energy. And she understands that everything comes together because he cleverly handles his bad luck. A week later, the main character thought that she had finally passed another idiotic lesson. And then the girl asks the maid if she brought her flowers, and then she took them and ran into the hall to her mother, where Lily's meeting was being held, and says that she picked flowers for her. At this time, the main character thought that she needed to show the results of today's lesson. The surprised Duchess thanks the girl, and after that she turns to the other ladies and greets them. The main character says that her name is Ophelia Kreddle, and at this time, she remembers that she is not allowed to greet someone who is higher in status than her. The girl understands that despite the fact that Ophelia is the direct heir of the Duke, she is just their daughter, and her status is much lower than that of these ladies. And she must respect adults and behave modestly in front of them. The main character thought that she was simply doing what the Viscount taught her, and he turns to the lady and says this is the first time she has met noble ladies, and is therefore very happy. An unfamiliar lady approaches the girl and tells her that she has heard a lot about her and is very glad to see her in person. The young lady looked at her and thought that she looked offended. Bunny understands that these events are held to provide regular donations to the almshouse, and it looks like their hearts are full of compassion. A woman in a yellow dress asks if the girl is okay, and she says that it is a little late, but if she works hard, she will soon catch up with the other children. Hearing this, Bunny thought that they had not thought that this was already the result of her training. A lady in a lilac dress reports that this girl has the blood of Kreddle, and she will grow up to be a noble daughter, more elegant and dignified than anyone else. The lady reports that she is already a noblewoman at her age. Hearing this, the main character thanked her and grabbed her hands. But when the lady saw her hands, she doesn't understand why they are so hard and asks about it. She is interested in why this girl is wearing such an old dress. Seeing the surprised ladies, the Grand Duchess explains that due to her illness, the doctor, in order to cure the infection, told her to frequently wash her hands and body with strong drugs. Fluvia talks about how if only her mother was a saint, and she feels so sorry that she feels that her hands have become so tough just because she is powerless. At this time, the main character looked at her and thought that she admired her acting skills. The Duchess approached the girl and said that her body had not yet fully recovered, and asked why she came running here. The young lady explains that the room is too boring. Fluvia claims that she still has a long road to recovery, and she was terribly sick and still so skinny. The Grand Duchess gives the girl her cape and tells her that the northern winters are terrible and she should not go outside in these pajamas, even if she really likes them. Hearing this, the lady in the yellow dress understood what was going on, and he tells the lady not to worry. Fluvia strokes the girl's face and says that she will go to the temple every day and pray for her so that she gets well soon. The Grand Duchess also tells the girl that she should go back because they are in a greenhouse, and the cold air is coming in and she might get worse. Suddenly, the young lady screams and hugs the woman and says, "Mommy, don't cry." And at that time, I thought that if she was getting ready to leave, she would not have come at all. Bunny says that if Mom is sad, then so is Ophelia, and he invites her to never be sad again. The girl reports that the doctor said that she is almost cured of malnutrition. The ladies were very surprised when they heard this, and one of them noticed that there was a hole in the lady's skirt. The lady noticed that the Duchess's daughter's petticoat was not of the best quality, and she did not understand what kind of fabric it was, because it was so old. Madame in the yellow dress thought that the Duchess and her sons were always dressed to the nines, and maybe the lady was given these cast-offs because she was in poor health. Madame in the green dress thought that no matter how sick she was, they could see what condition she was in and why she had not been properly taught manners. At this time, Fluvia looked at the girl and thought that she was uneducated trash, and then the Grand Duchess turns to the ladies and says that in fact she could not tell them what really happened, but while she was away from her family, her child was sick, and the maids who were tasked with taking care of Ophelia. The main character heard this and couldn't even think that she would reveal all the dirty secrets of the family. However, she is, of course, silent about violence. Fluvia says that the fact that she continues to wear this petticoat is because it fills her with memories, and she realizes that the guilt still does not let her go, because she didn't think that the maid she trusted was capable of such a thing. Hearing this, the girl thought that if this were really the case, then there would be no need to talk. The Duchess wanted to make herself feel sorry for herself and asks if there is a worse mother than her. However, the ladies calm her down and ask how this can be her fault, since this is the act of the servants who betrayed the trust of the young lady. Fluvia agrees with them and claims that if they have bad intentions, it is really scary. The woman in the yellow dress says, since the Duchess lived most of her life in the temple, they probably thought she didn't know much about everyday life. The Duchess says that she is afraid that Ophelia will not forgive her, and she is even afraid to think that she doesn't love her, because she is not her real mother. Hearing this, the ladies calm her down and say that she must be strong for the sake of her child. Viscount Leiden angrily asks the lady why she did this. However, the girl does not understand what he is talking about. The teacher explains what happened in the greenhouse this morning. Hearing this, the main character thought that he recognized Angelus even in the first place, and she thought that the Duchess had already scolded him. The young lady explains that she just wanted to give flowers to her mother's friends. After all, she tried very hard to do what he taught her. Hearing this, the teacher asks when he said that. The lady explains that she wore modest clothes, was the first to greet her superiors, and she does not understand what she did wrong. The Viscount, screaming, says that modest clothing does not mean things with holes. However, the girl claims that she wears this every day because it was her cleanest clothes. The teacher asks if she has clothes similar to what she is wearing now. The lady replies that these are the things of the real Ophelia, and they are so luxurious and not at all modest. The young mistress reports that she will get in trouble if she goes out and gets them dirty. Hearing this, the teacher was very disappointed, and then he took the jar and pulled out one tablet and offered it to the girl and said that it was to improve memory and let her eat it. He explains that he found them especially for the lady. The Viscount claims that this medicine will help improve memory, and he found out about it and obtained it especially for the princess. Hearing this, the lady asks if it is true, and then she takes a pill and says that now she will become a genius. The teacher smiled and said that now he will see what she is capable of and offers to try to continue the meaning of this symbol. The Viscount reports that he never said such a thing to the princess, and not that one should dress modestly, nor that people of lower status should be the first to greet her. The teacher claims that he has always been a faithful professor to the princess and said only the right things. But because of her absent-mindedness and stupidity, she did not even listen to her lessons and behaved inappropriately. The young lady asks if this is true, and he answers that it is so. And then the girl agrees and says that he is right, and it seems to her that everything is to blame for her absent-mindedness and stupidity. The teacher claims that he needed to say a long time ago, and he does not understand why he suffered for so long and beat around the bush. The Viscount claims that this time they will do everything as expected. After all, she learned everything from him, but was too stupid to understand anything. He invites the girl to listen carefully, and if Prince Angelus suddenly comes, then she should say that she didn't remember anything at all from their lesson. At this time, the lady thought that it was probably some kind of drug that clouded her mind, and she tried to behave accordingly, and he showed his true colors. The main character understands that even under the threat of death, he would not leave any evidence. The servant asks if the master is okay. Angelus replies that he is fine. And at that time, he thought that he had this dream again, and after what happened with Ophelia, every time he falls asleep, he has nightmares. The young master asks if there is any medicine left for the headache. The butler asks if it would be better for him to rest properly in the room, and he says that in fact, the gentleman should not exhaust himself with this work, because the Grand Duke has not yet retired, and he is just studying. Suddenly, the Viscount enters the young master's room and asks for forgiveness for disturbing him, and explains that the matter is urgent. He says that a few days ago, he attended a meeting of the White Lily Society, which was held by the wife of the Grand Duke. Suddenly, the princess broke through, and the members of the society wondered what she was talking about. The teacher reports that they witnessed her inappropriate words and actions. The young master asks how likely it is that this is a false accusation. The Viscount explains that there are many witnesses. Hearing this, Angelus screams and asks why he is only telling him about this now, and wonders if the meeting wasn't a week ago. The man explains that the wife of the Grand Duke forbade anyone to talk about it, because the incident could tarnish Kredel's reputation and harm the princess herself. The young master thought that she could not be trusted, and it's all his fault, because this girl is a wild foal from head to toe. He thought that she could only be controlled by surveillance, control, constant checks and pressure. And after these words, Angelus drank the medicine and said that if even the slightest blemish appeared on Ophelia's reputation, he would send her to the tower. The young master enters the girl's room and says that he knows that she is smarter and smarter than any child, and asks what she was even thinking about when she did this. And at that time, he thought that this girl was not Ophelia, but she was terribly similar to her. Angelus claims that he does not want to listen to the reason, and suggests that she immediately go to the tower. And he announces that he will completely change her maids, and she will do everything to ensure that she no longer thinks about such crazy things. Hearing this, the main character says that everything is true, and she is to blame for everything, and this is all because she is stupid and absent-minded and cannot properly listen to the lesson. But the teacher explained everything perfectly, and due to her poor memory, she did not understand anything at all. Suddenly the girl screams and says that she will become an obedient child and obediently take the medicine that Viscount Leiden gave her. However, the young master does not understand what she is talking about and asks her about it. But suddenly, the main character throws the box and it opens and the tablets fall out. Seeing this, Angelus asks what it is. The young lady talks about what if she doesn't accept it and suddenly faints. At this time, Bunny thought that he was caught, and Fluvia's methods are really effective, and she can also pretend to be weak. After all, the Kredels are taught to be condescending towards their weaknesses. The main character thought that it was good that Angelus was not immune to feelings of pity and was a hypocrite. The young master takes the girl in his arms and, screaming, orders to call the doctor and says that the princess has fallen. Hearing this, the doctor tells the young master to put her on the floor and he will examine her now. And at this time, the girl thought that the doctor might guess. And then the main character opened her eyes and looked at the young master and wondered why he was so pale. Angelus says that she has woken up. The lady asks the guy if he was awake. Hearing this, the young master asks in surprise how she can say such a thing. At this time, the main character thought that it seemed to her that he was taking this too seriously and was very worried. The girl asks why she is here and what this place is. Angelus explains that this is a medical room and says that she fell after hearing his words and asks if she remembers. Hearing this, the lady thought that it was not because of this that she fell, because she was preparing to faint for a whole week, and she understands why he was relieved when she woke up, and, apparently, considered himself guilty. The doctor reports that she quickly came to her senses, which is good. The man turns to the gentleman and says that he should have called him right away. After all, he was so surprised when they brought the princess here, and the girl thought that you had been quiet lately, and this had its effect. She looked at the guy and thought that he didn't care what the maid did to her, but it was only important to make amends. At this time, the main character thought that one could even say that his disgust for Bunny had become less. And that's great if that's true. The lady understands what is happening. He will definitely hear everything she says. The doctor reports that she almost recovered from exhaustion, but suddenly she fainted. And this surprises him, and maybe she hasn't been feeling well lately and asks her about it. The young lady reports that, to be honest, she often felt dizzy, and there was something wrong with her body. Angelus heard this and asks what exactly is wrong. The girl reports that when she opens her eyes in an unfamiliar place, it seems to her that she is not her. And all the memories are so confused, and that's why she behaves somehow strangely. The lady reports that she actually has one guess, and she asks if he will swear if he talks about it. The The young master takes the girl by the hand and claims that he will not and invites her to speak quickly. The young lady reports that if she does not take the pills given by Viscount Leiden, she gets better. The girl reports that he said that this was a medicine to improve memory, and she drank it every day. And at that time, she thought that she actually didn't do it. The main character understands that if she succeeds, everyone will think that she behaved strangely for 2 years because of the pills and often forgot something and made mistakes. The young lady claims that she was told that if she took this medicine, she would feel better, and so she continued to take it. The lady explains that even so they didn't do much good, but when she secretly didn't take the pills, her head seemed to clear up. The girl wonders if the Duke could talk to the Viscount so that she no longer takes her medication. Hearing this, the young gentleman said in surprise that pills that improve memory simply do not exist, and he thinks that this is still a medicine made with the help of golden magic. The doctor explains that this is a hypnotic drug that brainwashes the victim, and after taking it, it is impossible to think rationally. And if you hear the same thing all the time, then you can believe what was said or do as you were told. And even if this completely contradicts the victim's usual worldview. The doctor reports that she submitted to even the most unreasonable demands, and when she comes to her senses, she will feel guilty for what she did. The doctor says that this drug is usually not addictive, but if you take it for several years, because her own thoughts are mixed with those that are instilled in her mentality, her condition collapses. The doctor says that a person can go crazy from these drugs, and in severe cases can even die. The main character realizes that the situation is out of control. Since Credel's anger was due to the fact that this was connected with gold magic, everyone from the lower working people to the servants was under investigation. The girl remembers that it would become known where the book came from with golden magic that allows you to change people's destinies. Then, if Viscount Leiden gets away with it, he won't get out. The main character reflects on the fact that perhaps Viscount Leiden sensed something was wrong, or the news quickly reached him, and he mentally evaporated. However, the lady realizes that even then it would be difficult to avoid the Credels, and she didn't think that this thing would have unexpected side effects. The lady looked at the young master and said that if he continues to do this, he will fly away into the corridor from which he came. He doesn't understand what it's about, and the girl tells him to stop shaking his leg because it's inappropriate. The young master claims that she speaks like an old woman, and at this time he thought about how he could hit him like that. He looked at the lady and thought that for this she first needed to grow up. The young mistress asks him to stop worrying about what she is doing. The guy asks if she thinks he does it because he wants to, and she says that if there are still people in the area who use such drugs on children, then she could become their victim. Bunny explains that she has guards assigned to her. However, the young master claims that he is much stronger than them. The servant informs the princess that the first duke has arrived to see her. Silver says he will see her off. However, the lady will dissuade him if he sits cross-legged, and the guy heard this and asked that he would fly away somewhere again. The lady tells him that he will have a pelvic curvature. Walking along the corridor, the young lady asks the butler where he is taking her. He explains that the first duke, along with the invited doctor, is waiting for her in another medical room. Suddenly, the main character dropped the artifact and bent down to pick it up. And at this time, the servant covered her mouth with his hand and grabbed her. At this time, the girl was very scared because she did not know where they were taking her. But suddenly, in an unfamiliar room, she saw the Viscount, who says that it seems that everything went well. The teacher holds some kind of mixture in his hand and says that if he gives it to the girl, then everything will come to an end. The main character looked at the bottle with the green liquid, and the man asks if she is interested in what it is. The Viscount reports that it is poison, and only he knows where the antidote is. The teacher asks how when he thinks what will happen next, and he says that if he talks about this, the Credels will run after him like dogs. And he wonders if the bearer of the curse will die, what will happen to the real one, and asks her about it. The young lady reports that he is crazy. Hearing this, the man, screaming, says that she infuriates him, and he asks why he thinks he is doing this. The lady claims that he is the reason, and it is all because of himself. She explains that, at first glance, Viscount Leiden has the makings of a successful man. He had a desire to overcome the status with which he was born, and he seemed to know the future and did not miss the moment when great luck came. However, this did not last long. Perverted morality, which bends to suit its own goals, cruel and cunning disposition, impatience, violent character. All this combined can cause a person to act impulsively and waste all his efforts in vain. The girl understands that rising to a high position thanks to her abilities is luck, but she can also suddenly fall into the abyss. The main character understands that she knew that this would happen, and therefore she danced to his tune as much as he wanted. And this is what happened. Bonnie says that he is like this because he doesn't know how to be a human and behaves like an animal. The Viscount heard this, screaming and saying that he would finish her off right now. But suddenly, the girl felt that someone put a hand on her shoulder, and the young master reported that it was not so fast. Silver closes the girl's eyes and says that she doesn't need to see this. The Viscount asks in surprise how they got here, and at this time, the main character thought that she just trusted and followed these two. The lady remembers the artifact donated by Angelus. After all, then he said that a summoning spell had been cast on him, and so, if you break one stone, he will hunt down the second. Angelus puts his sword on the Viscount and tells him to tell him who is behind him, and he asks how the teacher knew about all this. The young master thought about why he had not questioned the source of the golden spirit before, and he doesn't understand why he decided that she got it from a landfill. The guy understands that she is a little child who just wanted to be loved. Angelus grabs the teacher by the neck and tells him to tell the truth. The young master gives him poison to drink, and then the Viscount pulls out the antidote and the young master knocks it out of his hands. Angelus suggests that the teacher speak, or from now on he will not have a second chance to explain himself. The young master once again asks who is behind him, and at that time, I thought that his skills proved that he was not acting alone. After all, there is a person with enough power to spur Silver's servant and bodyguard. Angelus looked at the bodyguards and thought that they knew nothing, and therefore ended up in the wrong hands. However, the guy understands that he needs to find out somehow. Suddenly, the Viscount says that he did everything on his own. Hearing this, Angelus remembered the incident with the maid, who honestly laid out in front of Silver, who was the initiator, and she was kicked out. However, this time it won't work out that way, because he considers himself different. The young master understands that the situation is very serious, and he does not know why the teacher is silent. After all, the fact that he poisoned Bunny and wanted to take her hostage means that all is not lost for him, and he will find out at any cost who is supporting him. At this time, the Viscount thought that if he could somehow survive, but however, he claims that he did it all himself. Angelus reports that he dug his own grave and then takes the sword and finishes him off. And after that, the young master says that he will not have a second chance. Silver closed the girl's eyes and asks if she is okay. The lady replies that is enough. And at this time, the main character thought that if she wants to survive in this world, she will have to get used to such things, and she is glad that she still has memories of Bunny. The young lady looked at the body and thought that suddenly she had seen this more than once in the slums. The lady wonders if they kill them all, who knows who is behind it, and asks about it. Hearing this, Silver asks why she thinks they killed them all. The young master explains that they left too. When you see a guard, a girl, ask what's wrong with them. And at this time, Angelus realizes that they had pills in their mouths. Seeing this, the young master says that he made the same mistake. Angelus reflects on the fact that he should have left the Viscount, and he understands that because of anger, his head was blown off, and it was as if the blood was boiling in his veins. The young master thought that the reason he reacted so emotionally was the girl he had to protect. Angelus turns to the girl and explains that he cannot undo what has already happened, but assures her that they will do anything to find out who is behind this. The main character looked at him and thought he was an idiot, and then she smiled and thanked him. At this time, the young lady thought that the eldest son, imbued with the heroic ideology of the Credles, did not even suspect Fluvia. However, the main character understands that simply stopping hating Bunny is also a huge achievement. Suddenly, Angelus kneels in front of the girl and says that he is serious. The young master says that that artifact serves as evidence, and soon he will give her a new one, and she can break it at any moment, even at the slightest danger, and he will immediately come. Angelus claims that he will give them to her until she can live a peaceful life in this castle, and he explains everything. That's what they are for. Silver looks at the girl and asks if she understands, and his brother is reminded that he said that he would not forgive anyone who touched Ophelia's things. Hearing this, Bunny thought that he was not accusing her of stealing, and this was the first time she received jewelry as a gift. However, the main character does not understand what will happen when the real culprit is caught. The girl reflects on the fact that if you say that the culprits will turn out to be Fluvia, whom Angelus trusts so much, and she wonders what if you say that he is no different from the criminal who ruined Bunny's life. The main character thought about what she wanted to see. What kind of expression will they have when they hear this? Late that evening, Bunny took the earring and thought about how she hasn't spoken to Damien since his birthday, and she remembers that he was definitely sick. The girl wonders if he has found medicine, and she would like to ask if he is being treated, and quite a long time has passed since silence reigned. The main character understands that the predictions are based on 8 hieroglyphs. Damien, and you're his case, 4 of the 8 Earth characters, and in other words, he has a lot to bury. And this is the pain of suffering and even resentment, because the black-haired guy has gone through a lot of hardships and has a high chance of becoming a big authority in the future. However, the problem is that the guys kick him all the time. However, for this, he still needs to do a lot of work. Until Damien's fate is revealed and he dawns, he will have to overcome many adversities and difficulties. The guys turn to Damien and say that he is impudent and ask if he knows how many people are freezing to death here, and the second guy claims that it's all because of him. But suddenly, they heard a woman's voice asking where her baby was, and then they quickly left. The woman runs up to the boy and says that she is glad that she has finally found him. The boy looked at her and thought that she had come. The man reports that since she found him, they should now go inside because the wind outside is cold. At this time, Damien thought that the reason why he and his mentally ill mother were still alive was because they were protected by this man who came from time to time. This man also has the same black hair and eyes as his and his mother. The boy looked at the man and at first thought that it would be nice if this man became his father. But he understood everything from his look. Damien realizes that he hates him as much as everyone else. The boy understands that his real father also abandoned them and he does not need a replacement. The guy thought that he didn't want anyone to discover his artifact, and he remembered that he hadn't contacted her for a long time. The boy looked at the sky and thought about how Bunny was doing. At this time, the main character looks at the earring and thinks that she has hope that this year will go well. In Damien's prediction, Ilgi and Vilgi collide with each other, and when they collide, the unknowns intensify even more. This is a sign of losing parents at a young age, and perhaps this year, his mother will have an accident. And if you make a mistake, it could affect Damien too. Because a child cannot help but be influenced by the enormous influence of his environment. The main character understands that in her world, this would not have much meaning, but this place is different. And she doesn't understand how a tiger can appear in a landfill. After all, even my grandmother would say that this is not justified. The girl looks at the artifact again and thinks that everything will be fine. And then she thinks that it would be better if she didn't get involved in this because she got too carried away. Bunny muses that he just wants to make sure this guy is okay. After all, she needs to advise him to stay in a safe place because something dangerous might happen. The main character understands that she cannot yet leave this place because of the Duke. After all, she needs him to lower his guard so that she will soon be able to move freely. Bunny understands that she needs to get through this year safely, and the guy must live too. The next day, Angelus claims that from now on he will take over her education. Hearing this, the main character thought that she would now have to see his face every day. And she says that she doesn't have to do this, and nothing bad will happen. The girl looks at the young master and assures him that he does not want to take up his precious time. Hearing this, the guy explains that he has already allocated time in his schedule, and at this time, the lady thought about what if she didn't want to. The young master asks the girl how far she has come, and at this time, the lady thought that he really planned to teach, and she doesn't understand whether he feels responsible for what happened to the Viscount. And at this time, the main character thought that just come what may. The guy asks how many letters she knows from the main book, and he says that they can talk about the international situation as well as who is responsible for the war. Hearing this, the main character does not understand why he is teaching her this, and she reflects on the fact that he cannot help but know that an innocent child has become a scapegoat. Angelus says that nothing happens by chance in the world. Everything has two sides, like a coin, and he argues that a girl should see the essence of things. Bunny thought that he was also talking about his essence, and at this time, she does not understand why Damien became the culprit of the war, and was it really impossible to tell the truth. The girl says that she heard about Trust Day. The young master says that everyone has heard about him because this story was spread everywhere, and he says that the cause of the war really exists. However, it is not the child born that day, but his mother. The young lady asks how an ordinary person could start a war. After all, it continued precisely because of the magicians and witches. Hearing this, the guy smiled and said that he was ordinary. Angelus explains that the royal family of magicians are not ordinary people at all. Kazan Kingdom of the Evil Clan, where everyone has black hair and black eyes. Hwana is the princess of the fallen country and the culprit of the war. Hearing this, the main character remembered that if you think about it like that, then the head of the Dark Brigade said that he stole that artifact from the palace, but he didn't say which one. The girl reflects that this could be the thing of an aristocrat who visited the palace, and that's when she realized that these were the princess's earrings. And Damien is her son. And the woman whom we call crazy was actually a princess. The young master reveals that the Kazan Kingdom joined the mages before the Great War. Angelus says that Princess Hwana received the king's order to divide the continent and turn to the crown prince of the Kingdom of Abyss. Bunny thought that the crown prince was Emperor Ryan I, who united the north. The girl understands that Damien is a prince because it's so obvious. The young master reports that the Kingdom of Kazan suffered a complete defeat in the Great War and disintegrated without a trace, and all members of the royal family were beheaded. Hearing this, the girl asks if Princess Hwana survived. And at this time, the main character thought that if we count Damien's age, then she became pregnant after the world came to an end. And the guy says that His Majesty saved her. Bunny wonders why he did it. Angelus explains that they say he truly loved her. Hearing this girl thought that this was nonsense, since the woman he truly loved had even given birth to a child and was living a miserable life in the slums. And he even calls her son the culprit of the war. The lady says that since he knows about it, it means everyone in the imperial family knows and asks if it's true. The guy replies that she speaks correctly and reports that only the imperial palace, Credelli, and the temple know. However, Bunny does not understand why they call the prince the culprit of the war and asks about it. Angelus argues that she shouldn't think about it, and she shouldn't even talk about what I can handle. She should just take it as a lesson. The guy explains that she must understand this if she does not want to face a sad future. At this time, the girl thought that this means the imperial palace will take action before this story gets into people's mouths. After all, the imperial palace will put its hands on it. Lady realizes that this does not mean they will care for Damien as the crown prince, and there is a high probability that they will silently get rid of it. The young master reports that the emperor has taken Princess Hwana into custody for her protection, but perhaps the emperor changed his mind and rescued her himself. And they also say that the guards were deceived by the princess's cunning. Angelus reports that there is also a version that the remaining inhabitants of the Kazan Kingdom broke out and kidnapped her, and he asks who she thinks released the princess from there. Bunny replies that he doesn't know, but he thinks it's the one who wanted the princess and her unborn child dead. Hearing this prince asks why. The girl explains that the day the child was born was the day of the prediction, and wanting the death of mother and child, he made this prediction public. This man said that the cursed child with black hair and eyes was the culprit of the war, and he doesn't understand how he can live peacefully on the territory of the empire. Bonnie says that perhaps the kidnapper of Princess Hwana is Her Majesty the Empress, since she is very insidious and was interested in this. The royal family of Abyss is the only one where polygamy and polyandry are allowed. After all, the power hidden in their blood is bestowed by God, and therefore, even the temple turned a blind eye to such unions, working to preserve the family. And the current emperor of Abyssus took advantage of this when unifying the north. After all, he entered into marriage alliances with significant persons from various places. The main character says that the first time after the founding of the country, the situation with power will inevitably be unstable. And even if she is the only empress, then in such a situation, it is worth being wary and paying attention to the rulers of other regions. Princess Hwana has become an eyesore. After all, a child born in the imperial palace should become a prince with the right of succession. However, no matter how blood ties bind the ruined empire, if the emperor does not carefully extend his hand to the woman with his child, then the other wives of the emperor will feel the danger and turn away from the empire. The girl reports that the kidnapping of the pregnant Princess Hwana from the palace is the announcement of predictions about the birth of a child who will cause a war, and in the end, only those who have the power are capable of this. And if you think about it, Angelus looked at the girl and thought that she was a very smart child, and he didn't know it all and never even really thought about it. The young master understands that if she had a real professor, she would enjoy her studies as much as any other young lady. The guy thought that he had made a mistake, and he says that, of course, they whispered about this, but now everyone believes that Her Majesty the Empress had an influence on this. Angelus reports that, speaking of the current situation with inheritance rights, two influential families have already sided with the crown prince, and the Credel family maintains neutrality as it symbolizes moderation. Hearing this, the main character thought that if so, then the empress might be involved in this. In the past, children were used to control the wives of emperors or other princes, so they had no reason to worry about a child who would likely die after being declared the cause of war. However, Bunny does not understand that now that the crown prince's position has been strengthened. And is it possible to ignore the factor that threatens the right of succession to the throne? The girl reflects on the fact that it must be very annoying for the one who sent the culprit of the war to never receive news of his death, and she understands that the empress will take care of everything personally. The main character thought about getting out of the empire. She needed the help of someone equal in strength, and if she rushes to rely on the side of strength, she may end up in a more deplorable situation and become a toy in the wrong hands, which she will gladly use. Bunny understands that if he does not become emperor, he will be a beggar, and it is also called the quadruple arsenal because it contains 4 signs. The girl understands that with the signs of fire and water, iron and wood, mountains, gold and silver will grow endlessly. With intelligence and talent, as well as leadership qualities, he should be a born ruler with a large number of followers. Bunny reflects on the fact that he is truly a wonderful emperor. After all, he is a hidden prince, a child of noble blood, not yet possessing any power and untouched by anyone. The girl knows that, moreover, by his destiny, he is the only one who has qualities worthy of an emperor, and she assumes that maybe this was the real reason for her concern. The main character is still worried, but understands that Damien is the very person she needs, and if she misses it, then she won't have another chance. Bunny reflects on the fact that she needs to grab hold of him, no matter the cost, because this guy definitely needs to be saved. The young mistress tells the maid to call her a suitable designer from the proper dressing room, and the lady explains about the dressing room, which you don't have to book, and about the designer, whom you can immediately contact in person. And in a nutshell, she says that it is an unpopular place where the owners have nothing to do. The maid says she understood her. Bunny says that there is no need to give her last name, because she wants to end this as soon as possible. And at this time, she reflects on the fact that she never thought that the money given by Angelus as compensation would be spent in this way. The maid asks the lady if she would like to try it on herself. The girl claims that the quality of the fabric is not important. After all, she wants to stud the dress with small diamonds so that the fabric is not visible. The main character understands that she must avoid known gems that can be used to identify the master. Hey, if accessories with big names are sold without permission, then they can be used to track the location, but a small modest dress with unknown stones will do just fine. At this time, the girl thought that this is the price of wealth, and she tells the maid to tell the designer that if you look closely at the dress, it should shine like a scattering of stars in the night sky. Bunny looked at her maid and thought that she was still a great judge of people, and even when she turns to her with strange requests, she does not ask the reason, and this means, of course, she trusts her. The girl reports that she is going to get into trouble. Candace was surprised when she heard this, and the young lady says that she first asks her to understand. When Ruby came to the young lady's room, the lady said that she had heard rumors that a traveling wizard had announced a wandering wizard on the territory of the Grand Duchy, and she asks if Ruby knows anything about this. The red-haired maid says that wizards usually use their abilities to join royal or other noble families and trade guilds, and wandering wizards travel without any specific purpose. The maid asks the young mistress if she is also interested in wandering wizards. At this time, the lady thought that, more precisely, she needed an artifact created by that wizard. The main character understands no matter how quickly she wants to escape. But without the help of magic, it will be difficult to do this, and she understands that she needs to be able to use the magic of moving attack and extraction. The lady reflects on the fact that using an artifact created by the magician of the Credel family is the same as escaping with a tracking beacon. The red-haired maid explains that the magician has rose-colored hair and beryl eyes, and his aura is Russian, even from a distance of 100 meters. The maid says that he also won a fight with a bear. However, the main character invites her to tell her about his magical abilities. Reuben says that she does not know this, because he is probably not as good as the wizards of the great families. And at this time, the girl thought that the wandering wizards here looked like boards, and they also sing songs and tell all sorts of rumors. The main character understands that she has nothing to do, and she does not have time to look for other wizards. Traveling wizards travel all the time, and if not now, there is no telling when she will have another opportunity to meet them. The young mistress asks the maid where he is exactly, and maybe she can find out. At this time, the boy who lived at the landfill saw his uncle who was wounded. Damien asks him what happened, and he saw a lot of blood. The man says that it is Mrs. Juana and invites the boy to run away, and he says that the last hope of the Kazanovs was caught. The man asks the boy to protect Mrs. Juana, and after that he plunges into eternal sleep. At this time, the boy thought that he needed to run after his mother. However, he did not understand where he should run. At this time, the main character heard that the young master was going to marry her, and the girl thought that the Kreddles were so nasty, and it was clear why they were not popular. The young mistress asks Angelus if he was looking for her. The guy says yes, and invites her to take the new artifact. Seeing him, the main character thanked him. And at this time, the young master thought that this girl was very similar to Ophelia, and this is so much so that even family members think so. The young master thought that it was his fault that this child was forced to smile. However, he understands that simply protecting her will be enough. Angelus looked at the artifact and thought that Ophelia found it after Togo, and he does not understand what happened to her. And he reflects on the fact that if she had something like this before, the danger could have been avoided. The young master understands that now everything is different, and no matter what happens, he will not allow this girl to become like Ophelia. At this time, the main character thought that she could now wear this bracelet. And he's a good artifact, and if necessary, they will be able to immediately track her location. The lady understands that this is the first thing she needs to avoid. The next day, the girl went out into the city and thought that it was great, since it was the beginning of the working day. And it is located near the building of the Kreddle Ministry of Magic. Suddenly, the main character saw a man and thought that his upper lip was plump, and he probably gets a lot of recognition, and also a short philtrum and wide eyebrows. And therefore, he is not a meticulous person. On the contrary, he has excellent tolerance and good interpersonal relationships with people. The girl thought that this man was stable and trustworthy, but it would be easy to deceive him. And she understands that if she enters the building herself, she will be recorded, and so she calls him to her. The man asks the girl what she is doing here. The lady asks if there is magic that can be used to instantly move to the land of Daimin. The magician replies that they are always ready to move to any territory where they have an agreement. The lady offers to use it. Hearing this, the man, screaming, explains that this cannot be done outside the castle. However, the girl assures him that they will only do this for a short time. The young lady assures him that if he helps her with this, she will definitely pay him by buying something special. However, the man assures that if the first gentleman finds out about this, he will die. The magician explains that he still remembers what happened 3 years ago, and he says that he cannot say this. The main character understands that due to the fact that knights and magicians cannot be replaced as servants, and if they mention Ophelia's curse or the existence of Bunny, she will lose her life. The girl understands that 3 years ago is when Ophelia was overtaken by the curse, and all she heard was that Ophelia had fallen for the magician's trick, and she wonders if Angelus is really involved in this. The magician claims that in any case, it is dangerous outside the temple, and the lady says that it doesn't matter, since he will be able to track the scroll of movement that he himself created, and therefore he should not worry. Bunny reports that, first of all, the young duke is a busy man who does not have a minute to rest, and she herself hasn't seen him for a long time, and he comes only on business. The girl explains that she is not a simpleton who knows nothing about the world. She survived alone in a landfill without her parents. The magician heard this and reported that this was not the problem. Bunny claims it's only for an hour. The man says that if she doesn't return in time, they will go looking for her, and the girl says that she knows about it. The magician asks the lady why she is looking at him like that, and at this time, the main character thought that it was really easy to deceive him. The main character reflects that he is staying at that hotel, and it will be easy to find him. After all, rumors even reached Kreddle Castle. Suddenly, the girl heard herself being asked if she was looking for a wizard. A man with pink hair reports that she is at the address because he is the wandering mage Mewtwo wandering around the world for the sake of justice and peace. The lady looked at him and saw thick, wide eyebrows, straight, downturned, and a nose without visible nostrils, and big, round eyes, thin, big lips. The magician asks the lady if she wants to listen to a song or stories about his victories over the villains. The man with pink hair says that she can ask him anything because she has come a long way to see him, and therefore he must live up to her expectations. At this time, the main character thought that he decided to flirt with her because she looked like a rich, noble lady, although she was dressed quite simply. The girl understands that he is clearly a generous and interested person, but not to the point of betraying others. The young mistress says that it is easy for him to start a conversation, and the magician asks what the little lady wants from him. The main character reports that she wants 5 scrolls, movement in, and 10 different artifacts. And she wonders what type and effect of magic he has, and how long will it take to make. The girl reports that she still needs magic that allows her to change the color of her eyes and hair, and for this to work while moving, and asks if this is possible. Hearing this, the magician says that he is not going to engage in dangerous activities. Having heard this girl, she claims that he said that he defeated the bear, and the man says that this is an animal and explains that the persecution is so annoying. Bunny announces that he will pay the advance. She puts stones in his hand and says that she doesn't know how many there were. After all, she didn't count. The girl explains that 3 of her pockets are forgotten with these stones, which she can give to him. The magician heard this and said that he could entrust him with anything. Bunny reflects on the fact that it ended up taking almost the entire day to prepare, and even though she said it wouldn't last long, and when she returns to the castle, she won't be able to escape just as easily. The main character thinks that now the main thing is to make sure that Damien is safe, and she is worried that at least nothing happens to him. Suddenly, the girl heard that the boy was alive, and she said that it sounds sudden, but there are people who want to take his life. The lady says that this year is dangerous, and he needs to be careful, and the boy says that he knows it. The main character asks how he knows this, and the guy explains that he just wanted to live, and he also wanted to thank her. Damien talks about finding the rabbit constellation,